this. The weekly way. Oh, can you spend the nose? The weekly way. Oh, can you tell me who? The weekly way. Did you see it? The weekly way. I'm glad you stopped by. Take him to him, baby. Take him up again. Oh, can you tell me who? The weekly way. Yeah. The weekly way. In the nose. The weekly way. Time that we don't get on gigs and the things that we can't say on gigs, you know? Woo, Matt Wiles, what's going on, brother?
Oh, hey, man.
Thanks for parking your Subaru far enough away from my conservative neighborhood that we don't need to disgruntle folks. I mean, like, just because it's cold out doesn't mean they're not watching their front yard diligently. So,
Oh, yeah.
no, my neighbors are very cool. But, man, around the voting seasons, the signs are difficult to tolerate. Like, we can all go down to the rec center and place our little ballot buttons. But I don't care what you're doing over there. Like, that's the point, G, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it works out well that this is the neighborhood that I grew up in, and if I play events near here, I get to see all my childhood friends' drunk parents at events, and that's my shit, okay?
Yeah.
I love you, Kevin. That's my dude, you know?
Oh, man.
Yeah. Are you Cincy born and raised?
Not born.
Where are you from?
I'm from Hackettstown, New Jersey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you think your New Jersey ever comes out, or where you get out of there early enough that water supply didn't get you?
I don't know. Some people, I think some people say it does.
I mean, I would assume your family is New Jersey folk then,
Yeah.
and you kind of catch that secondarily.
Yeah, I think it just kind of comes with the, I don't know. I only spent 4 years there, but you're being raised by people from
Yes,
New Jersey.
exactly. Well, Nick Hack is not from New York, but his dad's very New York.
Oh, yeah.
And if he's not happy with me, I'm dealing with New York Nick, okay? And like it's a very quick transition.
Yeah.
New Jersey seems, I mean, when someone else pumps your gas, I mean, you just feel more entitled, right? Like
It's completely entitlement.
I was talking to a guy the other day who said, like, we need a punishment for whoever loses our fantasy football league. And my idea was make them pump gas like it's New Jersey, and not, you can't take no for an answer. Put on the onesie, go stand at a speedway, make people uncomfortable for a day. No tips, no nothing.
It is kind of funny because it's not standard practice. They might do it in one other state. I can't remember. I think they do it somewhere else. I might be wrong, completely off on that.
Is it a safety thing though? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
I honestly don't know why. It's always been that way.
and it's a great way to fuel the job economy. I mean, like, it doesn't seem like a bad gig if you can tolerate it, but like,
Yeah.
I don't want to touch people's credit cards. Like, cash is dirty enough, but what are people doing with their credit cards? Cocaine.
Right.
Cheap cocaine.
Yeah, that's But yeah. It is a thing. I moved out here when I was 4 years old.
So this has been what you knew from the get, but do you still go home to New Jersey every once in a while to see family out there?
There's really, the family's pretty spread, so I don't have anybody that I really know of. There's probably some like cousins of parents. There's stuff like that, but there's no like immediate family or nobody I would even recognize.
Really?
Yeah, that I know who's there. We were from Hackettstown is in it's the southern part of the state.
Cool.
It's kind of I haven't been there in a long time. I've only been back maybe once or twice as like a either a kid or like a adult.
Curious adult, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the impetus behind your family moving to a place like Cincinnati?
Job.
Okay.
Yep. And it's the coast, it's expensive.
For sure.
Even then, I mean, we moved in 94. And because I remember asking, as growing up, just asking my dad on occasion, like, oh, I know, we moved out here, whatever the deal is. And he said even then, he moved out here to make the same salary. And
just cost of living was going to make the difference.
Especially 1994, hour outside of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, yeah, he was making the same money and can live. You know, in New Jersey, when I was born, we were living in like a townhouse or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like small, it's connected, and then he's 94. Yeah, my sister was born. So, you know, 4-year-old and a baby in a townhouse, and
Hell.
and to be able to come out here and on the same income, have a house, like buy a property in a neighborhood that was going in, and be like the first owner of a house that just got built, and now you have like a 3-bedroom house, 2-story house with a basement and a 2-car garage.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting the way too that like when you leave a certain part of the country, you realize that certain like regular costs are optional. You know, whether that's the parking that you pay every day to go into a busy ass city and live that kind of lifestyle, down to your basic groceries, or can you find a butcher around you? Or like, there's certain things that you're unknowingly opting in for just by being around there. Or like if you're living out in sweet Colorado and it's like the heat, baby, like get a wood burning fireplace or suffer.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point in time where they tried to get my dad to move out to Chicago, and they were going to give him a pay raise, but it was a similar thing where it was like the quality of life is not going to increase. And he had, you know, 4 kids at the time and a wife that's like, why aren't you home to help me? You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, yeah, that's, I see that with a lot of places. If you do get promoted to go somewhere more expensive, you have the same lifestyle. Like nothing really changes. You might make twice the money in some cases.
yeah,
But it's because a $200,000 house in Cincinnati, Ohio, could be worth, you know, better part of $1 million in Los Angeles.
yes. No, I was just staying with
A
a
yard.
friend. And,
You know, like having a house with a yard in Los Angeles, like a house that costs like $1 million
Yeah.
for a house that should cost $200,000.
and then you have to insure $1 million house out there, which is
And
nonsensical.
the property taxes are probably stupid. I could only imagine.
Yeah, that's what I'm just starting to look around for my first house with my wife, and like she wants to be on the northern Kentucky side of the river for, I think what is a comfort of being a northern Kentucky kid, but she makes a lot of appeal for like what you can get over there for over here. So I try to watch both sides. Like I'd like to end up closer to where I work right now.
Yeah.
But
What neighborhoods are you looking at?
we're looking like Fort Wright, Fort Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah. So she grew up in like the Villa Hills area, so she likes a lot of things over there. But like for the first time to be considering like what is the value of being in a school district that you could send your kids to? Like I've never wondered about that until it's like, oh my God, this is an issue I should have been saving for a long time. Like thinking about selling another guitar for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. That's definitely a real thing. I don't want to have children.
That's gonna help you really.
It absolutely does. So when it comes to living, it's like, where do I want to live, or like where do I, and you know, Chelsea, my girlfriend, like either of us, like neither of us ever really wanted children.
Yeah.
You know, and so I lucked out in that regard.
And was that something you always assumed and were on track with, or did you? Yeah. Okay. Did you have nieces, nephews growing up that you were around at all? You said you had a younger sister.
Yeah, my sister's 4 years younger than I am.
Okay, so does she have any kids?
No.
Gotcha. Man, I didn't. I was kind of convinced on a similar track that I didn't want kids for a long time, but I was really amazed at just like the difference in chemistry of being around my own nephews, and it's like they are a bunch of doofuses. I mean, like they're both, well, 3 of them now under 4. All they do is raise hell. But I like them way more than I've ever liked other kids, just because of the familial aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then getting married to someone that wanted kids, like I've been convinced, but I've lived on both sides of that decision, and I just can't imagine why. I can't imagine why it has to be so set in stone for so many people. Like I think the decision is kind of implied on generations before us that you get a regular job, you have your 2 to 3 kids, and you move on with your life. Whereas a lot more people are now stepping up to that choice and happily figuring out what's best for them. Because it's not something that you want to have to forecast the concerns of. You know, like how many people are also ending up in situations where they can't have kids, you know, just naturally endowed with that. And now you're looking at a different opportunity here in how you can live your life and kind of prepare things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I'm lucky too. I think most of the time, if somebody feels, some people feel pressured, and that's always. I think that's most of the time that's coming from a parent
A
or
parent that wants
some-
grandkid.
somebody, not always just a parent. I mean, there's like I know that's like I said, that's kind of always been revered as like a societal norm. And that enough, I guess, like just something being a societal norm. Some people feel pressure over things like that. I lucked out, and I don't know, just maybe having my parents were really supportive of we were talking about that before you started recording. Just having parents who are behind an endeavor like what we do.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's for us, it's like music, but anything that's like freelance work, really. And maybe in music is different because, like, you know, if I were like, oh, I'm going to be a freelance electrician, there's a very different kind of job opportunity coming from being an electrician or a plumber than there is being a bass player.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, you know,
Well, it's weird to fall into the category of like we're a luxury expense, and that only becomes more and more true as time goes on. You know, in our own minds, I don't think we view ourselves as that. We know the value of what our work has in our communities and why we really do it. But to most people, if you're opting for a band for your wedding party, or if you're saying my Saturday night, I'd rather go spend the $30 ticket and see a really high-end show, or you're saying, do I want to DJ at my wedding or do I want to bring the band out? It's like you're trying to work with people's reward systems of what they really see value in, and what people take away from music, especially in the live experience, has changed so drastically even since we were kids. But we're watching the world of visual arts and in-person entertainment kind of split along the world of Instagram Reels versus what can you really catch in a live environment in 2 minutes, you know? As someone that ventures into a lot of categories of live music, do you find that once you remove lyrical content and you go into the instrumental category, are the listeners better just innately because it's a smaller niche?
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool. That's interesting. It's yeah. I guess in a way they're better in the sense that it's like it sometimes is a quality over quantity situation. Now the good news is that we've been fortunate, you know, after playing for several years and just putting a lot of work into it, you do see the quantity start to increase, which is nice. But it's like it definitely, like, I feel like most things, and sometimes something will eventually become, you know, objectively large or huge or something. Most things don't. But something also doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world. You know, like that person has been putting a roof over their head long before they were the biggest thing in the world. You know, there's nothing wrong. Like, something getting huge is pretty sweet, by all means. But it's kind of the idea of like a longer game of, and I think not just in instrumental music, in anything specific, or anything you do, or even if what you do genre-wise might be even if it's like initially considered to be something that's more mainstream. Like, okay, you have like a fusion band playing these like wild instrumental compositions, or you have somebody that's like, oh, I just write song, like I write songs. It's clear what I'm doing. You know, I play and sing you this song with this band. Even though initially somebody might be like, oh, like that's more mainstream, accessible, whatever the word is you want to put with that. But I feel like both bands really do have the same hustle to do, because it's like, even though most people are just like, oh yeah, songs, it only matters if the people who like songs have relationships with your songs. And those are going to be the people who actually, those are your quality fans. Those are the people like, oh, your music is actually connecting with me. There's people where, you know, playing in a band that's instrumental, there's a lot of people that music connects with too.
Yeah.
And it's just, and also there's a lot of people who like instrumental music where that kind doesn't connect with them. So even within that, even when you get into that, you realize like, wow, even within people who like instrumental music, people can be picky about just that.
Yeah.
You know?
And when you put yourself in that category where, you know, I think removing the lyric from the music opens up a lot of doors, but there's a lot of folks who would describe themselves as lyrical listeners. So you've kind of subcategorized yourself there. But one thing I really like that you said there was like, it's the way that people form relationships to the music. We work in a category it's an infinite commodity. Like Spotify Wrapped's coming up, so great. We get to quantify our value to everyone on the fucking internet.
Yeah. Oh man.
The one thing that made me cringe today is, what's it cost for them to build these shitty little graphics that they are gonna hustle off to people that
they paid. They had somebody maybe they forced some poor person in the company to do it, but
someone with under 1,000 plays that didn't get paid for it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like in theory though, whoever they paid to like, oh, make this graphic, because whoever's on salary there on their advertising team,
yeah,
like making actual money.
Yeah,
is making more money to make the presentation of the thing for all the people that they didn't pay any money to.
Well, and also they're paying someone to rephrase over and over again, down to the smallest number, down to the guy that has 3 minutes worth of streams and one listener, and it's probably him on a separate account, trying to make that person feel good to step up again to do it, because as much as they may not want to pay out the folks under 1,000 streams, it is a huge part of the platform's turnover. Like I've heard that 70% of streaming is legacy music. It's the greatest albums that you've ever heard, and that's understandable because we've now opened this up as a library of all the best, and you're competing with the absolute best in that regard. But you need to satiate these people at the bottom because they do bring in new listeners and they do have value to that company. But you're fabricating their value at that point. Like you might as well pay them in Dogecoin. Like it doesn't look good on them to have to reinvent. Like, why don't we tell them how many seconds it was instead of minutes? Because it's a bigger number, right? It's gonna make them feel better about that. And as I'm flipping through this, and like, there's a couple moments where I felt good about today, but for the most part, it's pandering. It was pissing me off.
Yeah.
But going back to what I was initially saying, like, we have this infinite commodity once it goes on the internet. It can be consumed by as many people or as little people that tend to find it. But you had said it's people's relationship to this thing that you've put out in the ether. And without the lyric, too, there's so much more opportunity for the ways that relationship can kind of surface and show itself. There's so much more interpretation to meaning. So in some ways, the lyric is... it's part of the initial grab. It's the first hook you can give to somebody. But by removing it, you've kind of reopened up the door for it to mean infinite things to infinite people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so different to be in that category and to find ways to be evocative to people and to be lyrical without words. As someone that has approached that in many different bands, does spherical feel like something totally different than you've ever been in, or is it just kind of the next chapter of your artistry?
It's it's a good question. It's unique. I mean, it's kind of unique in the way that, like, it's of all the bands I've had, it's one of all the projects I've been involved with. I'd say I've been involving myself in projects and bands and stuff for about 15 years now, I guess. 14, 18. When I was like 18 or 19, that was like a friend that I went to high school and college with. We had a band, like collaborating and like writing music and stuff. But I've been a fan of like fusion and prog rock and heavy metal and stuff for a long time. So having the prospect of playing or working on instrumental music, I didn't necessarily set out, and it's still like I like doing lots of things. I like balance. Like I find that actually if I start to if what I'm doing starts to become too focused on just like the one thing, that's when I start to feel like burnt on it. And I mean, you need to focus to a degree, because if you want to make something, like, yes, it takes regular focus. And I don't want to sound like, oh, it's, or I don't, if you don't focus enough on one thing, it's like, yeah, you either won't get as good at it, or it won't, reach its potential or whatever. But it's like really important to me that like while I'm working on something so specific or intense in that regard, because it's just a lot of it's very demanding, like technically and musically wise. Which is fun. There's a lot of fun that comes with that, but it is also like sometimes if I'm not getting to experience a lot of different facets of music and playing with either a lot of different styles or with a lot of different people, it's some of that like starts to wear on me, which is interesting. So there's like a different kind of like shape I feel in musically when I'm actually playing, without like overloading myself, overcommitting myself. I feel the most musically like sharp and in shape when I have a pretty good spread of things on my plate. Now they might not all be just like bands. One of them might be like an original band, but different types of gig, even if it's just freelance gigs, like a good variety. Like being in one situation with one kind of band one night, and then going the next night playing with a different kind of, and just having some variety around, to freshen things up. There's a special set of skills that stays sharp when you're doing that, which feels pretty cool. Keeps the flexibility, like intact. But
sure.
To come back around, so being in a fusion band, it's not unique in the sense of just like I've always liked instrumental music a lot, and I've been in other instrumental bands in the past. So playing that kind of music isn't like a new thing because I've always liked it, but it's kind of unique in the fact that this has been, of all the bands I've been in, especially bands like that, this has been the one that's been together the longest. It's been together the longest at this point, and also at a time it's like it's the most recent thing. So everything else I've done, this stuff is like stuff I grew to this point. So it's one of the more serious bands I've been in terms of like its potential, I would say.
Well, I think for everyone in town that's a fan of it, it's just when you can watch each individual player and be interested in the balance, and seeing the many gigs that you're out there doing, and Brandon's out there doing, and Ben and Devin, you all have lives that it's almost like picking your favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. It's like they're all doing some pretty rad shit, but I like it best when they're all together,
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that finding the right homes for these kind of events is the more difficult part of it. Like any other touring band, we've talked about this. When you're going out and breaking your back on trying to introduce someone to something they've never experienced before, like you're trying to open up their palate to what you're trying to provide for them. Set and setting is a huge part of that, and there's not a lot of rooms that will respond well to what I do or what y'all do. So you have to pick wisely and stay adamant about those things. And in places like Radio Artifact and whatnot do a great job of giving you a product to walk out of there with, to continually remind people of what this kind of can be. But what would you say is the hardest part about bands in the fusion category, and specifically the instrumental category, with keeping them together?
Oh, like people, keeping the people together?
Not just keeping the people together, but keeping the band together. Exactly, because bands fall apart all the time. One of the reasons that I claim myself as more of a solo artist than a band is because I've been derailed by the process of having bandmates come and go. And when someone is the center of your image and you got to go get new photography and you got to do another, it's not only painful, but it's setbacks that you sometimes can't recover from.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine personnel is an issue, but I think also the way that the bodies of work assemble in fusion has to be a really difficult part of keeping this on track.
Yeah, everything you just said is definitely very real, and that's something we have now. Is like it's the way that band sounds is pretty attached and set on the four individuals who are involved. And definitely, if any one of us were unable to participate anymore, it would definitely present an immediate like significant challenge to keep things going at a rate or with the consistency that we've always been like working on getting and attaining, whether it's just like frequency of performances, ability to to travel or tour, to make make the time or availability to like know like, oh, we're gonna go, we're we've never played in these so these markets before, so like we're gonna go commit and do that for the first time or what like those types of things that you need to do inevitably, as well as just take whatever, just trying to build the thing. So that's like a real thing, and that's kind of how like most things that I was like really into in the past kind of naturally crumbled or something. It was like nothing personal. It was nobody's fault. But yeah, you hit a point, especially when you're like 23, like right out of school, you're at an age where people's lives are starting to form. So some people are just like, oh, I'm going to go to grad school, or maybe I'm just going to move and try something. I'm 22. I'm going to try living here or whatever. So there were bands in the past that were like somebody would move and it's like, all right, it was like there was like 5 people in the band, one person moved, and we're like, actually it was a 2 horn player band, and one of the horn players moved. We're like, well, we can still play, like write some music as a quartet. It was fine. We missed the sound, but it was fine. And then that person, the remaining horn player, eventually their life took a turn in a way where they eventually moved as well. So naturally, like it's like, oh, I guess we're done with this. Yeah, it's like that stuff happens.
Yeah, well, I think persevering through that, it really shapes a lot of musicians. Like for folks that have turned jaded towards the craft of their original material, and folks that are willing to step up and stick out their neck for a project that they believe in. Like, it's hard to resurface and go back to that kind of game.
It does, man. It really stings, and like I said, it's good in a way you grow, because you have to feel that that's going to happen to everybody. You don't. There might be a handful of people in the world who started a band when they were between the ages of like 16 and 25. And it turned out just to be this big career-paying thing, and that's just what they did with it. Like, they're out there. There are those stories. There are people where that kind of happened to them.
Yeah. And if you still like each other by the end of that, that's the biggest miracle. But, like,
yeah.
I mean, look at Keith and Mick. Like, you have to do a certain amount of heroin to stay that.
Those guys shouldn't be alive, man.
Not only should they not be alive, they shouldn't like each other as much as they do.
They really should. Yeah, But it is kind of funny. But, like, they also like didn't last as long. So I know it seems like a lot of the bands where the members are still friends.
Yeah,
where they've been friends for decades and decades, because the band broke up like 40 years ago or something. Because like I never knew like the guys in Zeppelin were never like the feuding type, but Zeppelin, they retired in like 1980.
Yeah,
and they did the reunion because or 79 when I don't know exactly, but when John Bonham died, they're just like, yeah, we're not fucking with that. Like, that kicked ass.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But, it's like
a lot of respect.
Van Hagar, or however they want to categorize the Sammy Hagar chapter of Van Halen. Like,
I love Sammy Hagar.
I think Sammy Hagar is still a reputable pimp. I mean,
he's sick.
He's allowed to do whatever he wants, in my opinion. And also, like, is it Chickenfoot, his band with, like, Chad Smith and Joe Satriani?
Something like that. I forget that band. That sounds about right. I forget what the band is called, but yeah, there's a band, like he's always had these like, he's always been like projects with these like stunt guitar, like Billy Sheehan and stuff.
Dude, stunt guitar players is an amazing way to put that word.
Stunt guitar, like, dude. Yeah, Paul Gilbert.
Yeah,
like
classifies that category.
And I don't mean that in a reductionary. Like, I don't mean it to reduce their play. Because that's the thing. Some people, when you get into instrumental music, like, that's like a challenge too. It's like finding that line of like, you're presenting songs, and it's the same for like metal. Anything where there's like innately there's like where chops is a part of what the music sounds like. Like you're in a fusion band. It's like at some point there is a moment where everyone expects you to play a bunch of notes.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're always finding that line, because that's also like, and even for me as a musician, there's this fine line. Like, I love notes. But there's a fine line where I'm like, okay, now we're doing this.
Yes. And
it's kind of funny, because what's the point? It's like, man, you were just playing a whole bunch of shit, and like, where did you flip the switch where you're like, all right, now you're stroking it, get the fuck out of here. Sometimes it's related to your mood, which isn't like fair to those around you. But
no, I think I think it is, because like that's the, it's not the assembly line that you make a car with. The parts don't show up looking the same every single day. Sometimes the conveyor belt's on fucking 15, and you're just pushing shit off of it.
Go,
exactly.
go.
You're just trying your best to make sure everything ends up in its bucket.
There's stuff like that, and also like writing music like that, or having performances where there's a moment where it's gonna be like, is making sure that you sculpt the sets or the compositions or whatever in a way where like there's. As long as there's all the other elements of music are still there too. It's like, oh, there's an extra where there's like, oh, sick shit. Oh. But also there has to be a moment where there's just like, wow, like this groove feels great. Or like, oh, like the melody to this song is just like a really hit. Like I can sing you that melody, but like it's all of that shit still. Like that's what all that is just as important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been good too. Like in terms of saying what's made this band, in terms of all my instrumental endeavors, unique. It's the most mature, literally, because it's like it's the most current thing. So it's me in my most current form doing it. The same with the other three guys.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing the same thing I've been doing with other bands and stuff for similar amounts of time.
Yeah.
So we're at a point where fortunately the compositions, and I think the reason why recently we've been seeing some nice growth in terms of like turnout, fans, like that sort of thing. We've been seeing it's nothing just like immediately jumps overnight, but I've started to notice things in the last year. Also, I noticed like the band in general, like the band sounds and feels better than it ever has. And then I noticed a reaction and response in audiences with that. So it's also something too that like to never forget, no matter what you play or what kind of music you play. A lot of audiences, lyrics or not, there's so many other things that they're interfacing with in a live performance, whether they know it or not. And one of those things is just like everybody who likes to see bands wants to watch a band who's clearly enjoying what they're doing. You don't have to act like a fucking clown. You don't have to run around in a stupid hat making a fool of yourself. But you also can't if that's genuine to you. If you like whatever, I'm not criticizing.
Are you making fun of Jason Mraz? He's my fucking favorite.
He's gonna come for me. No, dude, and I'm not like
I do love Jason Mraz, but
yeah, and Jason Mraz is actually, I forget, I heard somebody played me a cut of his I had never heard, and it was like I forget what the song was called. I don't know if it was a live recording. It was a friend. It was in the van.
It might have been Beautiful Mess Live on Earth, where I think he has I forget whose section he has in that show. It might have been the Ohio Players horn section.
Yeah. But I heard something, and I remember listening to it thinking like, wow, like this guy has like a slight Jason Mraz vibe, and it was him. And whatever it was like super sick. It's like, but yeah, I think it's one of those cases where like he put on a
fedora, and it became the only thing that people care about.
He's a white dude who put on a fedora and had that one annoying song, and I mean, good for him, man. He made like, I'm not mad that he's paying his bills with a song like that's awesome. Like,
and as much as like we're mutually kind of burnt on that song as we are with many other songs, like that was the first one that got me in the game. That was the first one I played and sang. So I'm always reverent towards what that material did for me. Like
that's cool.
It pulled me into this category of now I'm trying to do that.
That's really cool.
And as things have come and gone around, it's like one side of our lives is kind of being attached at the hip to what the popular demand is, and that comes and goes with really fickle material and really strong material. Mm-hmm. And you have to kind of vet what you're willing to invest yourself in and play over and bring into the standards list. But it's hilarious when you do see artists like Mraz that have a deep catalog of material that's extremely well crafted and thought over and has many layers of consumption that you can enjoy. And then you find something like that where you can listen to this song one time and get the gist, and it may never click to you. Or it may be the song that you listen to, and like me, it's like it awakened a hope for a vocation in this life. It gave you some meaning of what a song can do for people. Like, well, I'll never forget the first time I heard that song. I'm sitting in the car with my mom, and she says, "This reminds me of my dad." My mom lost her dad when she was probably 25. He had a heart attack, so I never got to meet the fellow, but he was a guitar player himself. And to hear her say that kind of drove me to, of course I'm gonna learn this song from my mom. and it's not a song that can be played instrumentally and sound okay. I mean, it's too boring. So there's a great video of my childhood where I'm wearing an Avenged Sevenfold T-shirt. I have a straight bowl cut, like a really nice bowl cut, braces. I'm playing an ESP Kirk Hammett signature with the skull and crossbones, and I'm playing Jason fucking Mraz. Okay,
Hell yeah, you are.
just want to be heavy metal, but just can't not be white dude in a fedora playing acoustic guitar still. You know what I mean? I was meant for this.
Yeah, it's like acoustic guitar guy at the party.
Yeah, but going back to what you were saying about like knowing that people are not only engaged but enjoying what they're doing, to feel that the band is pushing for that is so special.
Yeah, and it's the act of going for it kind of comes with that too. And like people, especially in instrumental music, like people respond to that. It's just like, oh, this dude's going for it. And it's the same thing. Even if you go see a band that sings or a songwriter or something, even if you go see something in that vein, everybody's definitely interfacing with the song itself. Like, oh yeah, this guy is singing this thing, this person is singing this at me, and that's it's words that I know. But even if there's a moment where it's like, oh, everyone at any concert ever loses their shit for the drum feature. Or whatever, it could be anybody. I mean, it's the same. I mean, you've done it. There have been times where we've been at either like playing at somebody's wedding, or even like sometimes at a wedding or not a wedding, but playing in some situation, or even at like a place like Ruby's, where it's like it's not a wedding, but it's like backgroundy to a degree.
Yeah, it's a formal gig where you're just serving that.
And it's just like, hey, here's some trombone, and there's at least somebody, sometimes a bunch of people who are like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I've seen that phenomenon more at weddings than I have at Jeff Ruby's, for sure.
Yeah.
But like multiple times, for some reason, it's like, there have been different times, like different gigs, where it's just like, for some reason, it's like, these people love saxophone. And I don't think as a whole, I don't think they love saxophone music. I think they love the idea of the saxophone. Like, they just love, like, there's a saxophone in here, and that makes me excited, and they don't know why. But as soon as, like, every time, I think it was Josh Klein, every time Josh Klein would do anything, there was, like, because it was a pretty packed dance floor to begin with. They were really having a good time. So there was a bunch of people all the way up, and it just, but for some reason, so because it was crowded, every time Josh would do anything, these people, they would just flip anything. It didn't matter. They all night, that's all they cared about.
Yeah.
Was the fucking saxophone. But I've seen it. Sometimes it's the trombone. Sometimes it's not like horns. It's like, no, trombone. And I've seen it happen. I know I've seen it happen to Jason Branscombe at these gigs too. Or he's just having a night where I'm just like, wow, man, tonight these are trombone people, and they love their favorite whatever songs they're singing. And it's when there's a break from the singing and then there's some trombone, they're just like, and trombone.
Yeah. Not a la carte. like we get side dishes.
We get Bruno Mars and trombone. It's like I've never seen anything like this.
That's pretty brilliant though. Where
but it's going for it. Like they don't know what trombone. They don't know what it is, but they see a guy up there fucking going for it, and they're just like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, and
there's value in that.
I've never really thought about the fact that like, it kind of depends on the room. It's not that they love trombone. It's not that the essence of this band is going to be Chris breaking out the flute.
Yeah, they don't love Curtis Fuller. They're just like, oh, trombone.
But in that first, I guess it depends on the length of show. But let's assume it's one of our normal paying gigs, and it's a 3-hour show. In that first hour, give them just enough of a taste of everything to find out what has the pop.
Yeah.
And then slowly arc them towards that pop over and over again with, a variety of equations. But hold that fucking carrot over their head. Because for some reason, this clicks tonight. Like, I've had a lot of times where no one wants to tell me about the show. They just want to talk about Johnny fucking Disco. And I'm like, because he's a big guy? Because he slaps that bass like that? It's like, no, because he was up in their grill all night going for it. And they felt that. For some reason, it was different tonight.
That's real.
But if you don't look for these moments of them telling you everything they've ever wanted, and they didn't even know it, then you don't realize the power you've now taken over them, and how you can kind of play that.
Yeah.
I had the great experience of having you on one of these Ruby's gigs recently where thankfully they let me do a lot of my original material on those gigs. I don't think I'd be happy if I couldn't do that. But, in 2 weeks' time, you were able to get into the content, to know the songs well enough to go up and deliver them with conviction, and also to have your thumbprint, which for someone that comes from the sphere you do, I would only imagine that you're only going to play this in the ways that you're going to play this. No one else is going to sound like Matt Wiles playing bass on this song because you've really taken the time to craft your voice into this. But what's it like to have material that you're going to hump and dump versus material that you might play again versus material that you're going to spend the next 8 months grinding on?
Oh man, that's an awesome question. Well, it's to some degree, on some level, fundamentally there's a level where it's all the same, because it's like you have you committed to performing it with somebody, and like whether that's like this 8-minute intricate thing, like whether it's like Heart of the Sunrise by Yes, like 11 minutes, just
Jesus,
just like, oh my God, amazing, or like, oh, we're getting together where, like something the kids at Xavier did, one of the ensembles in the Xavier commercial music program this semester, was they played the entirety of Dark Side of the Moon. Like they did a really good job. Like they did a couple Sundays ago. Like I went to see it.
That is wild.
Yeah, they did. It was like a really large band because there's all those extra layers. So they just sized out the band to do all of the stuff live. So it was like 12. I don't want to call them kids. I mean, to me, like they're kids, but
infants,
but
toddlers.
Yeah, these young, these
young professionals,
these young adult, young budding professional
yuppies.
Jesuit University, man.
Soon to be renters of condominiums.
Oh, dude, some of them might have some fucking condos now.
Woo! I went to Xavier. I don't got no condo.
Right. Beautiful campus. I will say that.
They're working on it. They're working. Did you go to Dana's? You ever gone to Dana's?
No, what is that?
Dana's is like our one on-campus bar.
Is it in the university center?
No. It's like a little bit up. Like it's towards 71.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is.
I haven't been.
It is a ratty shack of love and liquor.
As it should be.
Yeah, there's one beverage you can get there called the Herschel, which it looks like Kool-Aid, but it'll rip your fucking tongue out your face. Like it is aggressively stocked. And then if you want to be a true degenerate, you get a naked Herschel, which means no flavor, just liquor.
Just alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're pretty much making jungle juice with zero concern for your patrons. And it's a hit.
I love that. Do you want to be a real degenerate? I love that word.
Dude, if you want to really get spent, just skip the sugar. I mean, go for it.
Yeah. Get spent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's a beautiful campus. I will give them that.
Yeah, it's kind of I dig it. I'm only there for an hour a week. Like I barely get to see.
But you're teaching privates up there?
Yeah, I teach I have a single bass student.
Cool.
I teach. But anyway, like it's the same thing. Like the point of the story is like they took on the commitment. Like, oh, we're recreating all of the parts of an entirety, like an album in its entirety. So whether you've signed up for some large scale thing, or you've signed up to play a song or songs that. It's like, oh, I'm filling in for somebody, so I have to play these. No, so I'm playing. I have to play. I'm playing these tonight. I got to do it. This is what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah.
On that level, they're the same, because there's a date and a time where I'm supposed to be on a stage playing it. Now there are other differences. It's like, okay, I'm just doing this for one night, but just because you're doing it for one night doesn't give you the excuse to sound like an asshole.
For sure.
And also, like that's. Most of the time, I feel like and from what I've heard, I like to listen to lots of podcasts and interviews with just different, like either industry people, different people of all kinds of, a lot of bass players, but very broad spectrum. I love broad spectrums of things. And that's something that's pretty unanimous. So if you eventually want to get into a band, and it could be just like, oh, there's a local band in town, I really love these guys, and I just want to do this more. Or it might be a band with like actual budget and tours and gigs. Like it might be a band that'll pay your salary. Either way, the way you get into any band at any level, you know, when they need somebody, because every now and then there's turnover, or especially in like bigger industry stuff, sometimes it's like, oh, our usual guy is just not available because he took a whatever going on, and by the time we plan this, now this person's not available. Unless you have that person on retainer.
Which is nice. I
Yeah,
mean,
right. But so some every now and then like an opening comes up, and sometimes, or maybe even short. It might like sometimes it's just a single night gig. Like, hey, I need somebody. Like it's what I always do. What I did with you, and I do it with a lot of different people. But it's if you go in for the one nighter, and the band, you feel like oh, this guy's done this before. Like to show up and be like, wow. We just had a guy show up who doesn't play in this band and really have no holdups and just like played the songs, but didn't just play the songs. It's like, oh, this person's actually playing in, like we still feel, if it still feels and sounds like a band.
Yeah.
And everything's cool. And it's like, you know, I didn't do it, but there still might be a mistake here depending on what it is in the prep time or whatever. But like, if you're just like really conscious and listening and just making good decisions, that's how you ultimately end up in the band. Because it's like, oh, if this person like actually did this kind of work just for a single show, then it's like they know like that's a person I can trust to play a month,
easily,
you know, or whatever.
Well, I think one thing with your case, with what I experienced, like someone went from the surface level of what's the form to where do I fit in the form to what's going on right now that I can complement. And then you still sound like yourself. So, and I can hear kind of your reverence for, if I got the call, I'm grateful I got the call. Now I need to assess whether I really have time for what this is. And if I do have time for what this is, I need to make sure it's up to my own standards of how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So when you were taking in work like that, what's kind of your checklist of, is this worth it to me? Do I have time for this? How do you kind of assess?
Yeah, most of it, there's certain things, it's like it's a constant balance of, I feel like it's kind of like if you have, some people kind of come up with a checklist of like 3 or 4 things and be like, if it has 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4, I try to say yes. And it's usually like, if you like the people, if you like the music, and you like the money, or the money is good.
Yeah.
And there could be, I'm sure you could come up with a 4th or maybe even a 5th element like that to be like, oh, like this, or like, you know, a 4th one I could think of is like, oh, like the place actually treats us well.
Yes.
Like this, like, because you could have, we actually had it. I mean, Ruby's doesn't mistreat us by any means. Like the staff is nice, but you know, like,
but it's not a listening environment.
Yeah,
that feels
and
musically fulfilling.
And that's fine. Like it's a fucking restaurant. It's cool. But like little things like, you know, it's one of the only places ever where it's just like, you can't have anything. You can't have a drink. I don't drink a lot. It's not as much like I'm not trying to just like pound liquor on my gig, but like anything. It's like if there's lots of gigs. Like if you want to have a glass of wine on your break, you're paying $14 to $18 for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, how many? Like every plate in here is deep into the 3 digits minimum. It's a Thursday fucking night. And so that's also, so there's like kind of that, or like the scenario, whether it's like, but all the staff, they're wonderful. They're super sweet. It has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Or it's just like the situation, just like the stage is super uncomfortable because there's that god awful fucking husk of a piano, right?
Yes.
Taking up 9 fucking feet. It's like normally it's like, dude, this stage could house a 12-person band. Like you could present a band and be comfortable. It'd look cool up here, but like we're huddled against a wall behind this giant fucking shell that he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on.
Yes.
And anyway.
Well, and again, it's like, it's something that we would all love to see if it served its full purpose. But because we know the reality of like, oh, it's a shell. Like you could have an upright shell with better presentation and optics than that.
Yeah.
But instead it's more of it's a sunk cost issue.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and for us where we are crammed up there, it's like, I get what you're saying, where there's amenities to the gig besides is someone nice to me on the staff. It's like sometimes you don't feel it's nice when we're catered to, but you want to feel like your comfortability should not be a concern. Your performance should be the only concern. The only thing you have to do is your job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that from the wedding environment that, we get the full array of, a ham sandwich on a fucking staircase to drink as much as you want tonight, and you guys are hitting the buffet as soon as the bride and groom are done eating. It's like,
yeah, of course.
That makes a visual difference with every single band member. And you can't expect those kind of things.
Yeah.
But boy, does it speak to us.
And even beyond that, it's like, listen, I'm not asking for a bunch of free stuff. It's not that. Like, it'd be, but there's other ways to show that aren't just like food and drink. It's like, some of these places you're on break and you're like, there's nowhere for me to even like stand or sit where I'm not in somebody's way.
Mm-hmm.
So like it wasn't thought out like, oh, we're going to have music all the time. And they didn't think out that like, oh, when these people aren't staying there playing music, there are bodies in the room. We don't just disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of a sudden it's like, well, what the fuck? I've been in multiple places too, like on break. I'm like, dude, everywhere I have to find some corner to shove myself because I'm just like, dude, I'm trying to stay out of the way of these servers who are trying to do their fucking jobs.
Yeah.
And it's literally in its packed house, so there's nowhere for me to like. Literally, it's like I have to stand outside or go to another establishment on the break if I want to sit down somewhere.
Totally.
And it's like it's not personal, but the point of that whole story. And make sure, like, on any clips, like, any specifics I say with names and stuff. Don't release
absolutely.
that. I don't. Well, you never know. Someone's just like, he finally said it. I'm gonna cancel. I'm gonna cancel him.
He finally, dude. Wait till we get in the politics game. I mean, we got things.
That's coming. Oh, we're gonna get it, dude.
I have a 5-point questionnaire, and it's gonna land you in some pretty thick water. Okay.
Oh man, that's gonna be fun. I'm thrilled for that, and I like listening back to uncut responses to shit like that. It's always fun. But the thing I was talking about before, like. We had a gig together where it was like people, check. Music, check. Money, check. We had all three. The only bummer is just like sit on break. It's like I have nowhere to stand.
Yeah.
But like, it's like also it's like I'm only here for a couple hours and I go home. It's fine.
Yeah.
I was happy to do it. But
the question of is it negligible? Like, yeah, if I have the other three, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Is just like, well, because everything else was there. That's what I mean. It's just like, well, I guess I'm just gonna stand with my friends for the evening instead of sit with them. It's totally cool. So like that, there's some balance to that when you try to take something on, but then you also have to be realistic. It's like, if something is going to take time, do I have that time? Like you owe it to yourself and those around you to be honest of like, hey man, I would love to do this with you, but like, here's what's on my plate. I'm afraid that come performance time, I won't be able to deliver what you need. So check, maybe try this person or whatever. I hope you come back around to me, but like that goes along. Like you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And in certain things, it's cool. Like one thing that helped with your gig though is like you had like little sketched out charts for everything. So that was like most of it is I just could take a quick glance or reminder, like, oh yeah, like this is the verse and this is the chorus.
Mm-hmm. And
then other than that, it's like sound good with these guys. Which is easy to do.
Yeah.
It's like we're playing, the vibe was very clear. Everyone plays in a manner where like the vibe of the song is very, very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so when Nick is playing this a certain way, it's like, I'm a bass player, so I play the fucking bass. But I've been playing the bass long enough. You talk about like having your thumbprint and like, I'm so, I'm fucking beside myself that you noticed. Because that means everything. Like that's like the highest compliment I think anyone can give me is like, man, I heard you, but not because I was shoehorning something in that didn't go there. Be like, oh, I played in a fusion band last week, like, or like Ruby's. Do you like notes? Because that can happen too. It's like some people's thumbprint is more narrow. Because it's like, oh, they've spent a career doing maybe this thing. So that person's, all their sensibilities might be wrapped up in a more single-laned thing. And if you took them and put them in, like, you had them at that gig instead, you took somebody who maybe, like, doubled down on that a little more, where their voice was entirely wrapped up more in a couple of bands in a genre that they've been in for their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Like Geddy Lee has only ever been in Rush. Geddy Lee, while being a bass hero and legend and being a freak show, that is all he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He will always, no matter what you do. So like, let's now take Geddy Lee and like put him on that gig that I was on, and you're just thinking like, this is kind of awesome and kind of heinous and horrifying at the same time. You know, because it's just like he's spent 50 years playing the bass like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's his thumbprint is he sounds like that. But I've always liked a lot of players who you can still hear like their decisions come across in their like their voice comes across in the decisions they make. So I've always wanted to be the kind of player that like, even though in one hand it's like, oh, I have a voice in this improv, you know, because most people when they think about like a musician's voice, I think a lot of people immediately think about bands or musicians that might improvise, or at least some, not everybody, but some people. But like that's a big topic in like people who get into jazz world is just like, oh, like finding like your approach or your voice to improvising music. You can have those things to non-improvised music too. But that's always kind of something I've wanted. I found some bass players that I really liked. Two of the big ones to me that kind of embody that are like, as a guy, the bass player named Anthony Jackson, who was on a ton of records, like big time session musician in the probably some in the 70s, but I'd say like the heyday of his career was like the 80s through the 90s. And then even still into the 2000s. Now he's getting kind of old. I don't think he doesn't play that much. He's also had some health struggles, I know, in recent years. But he's on like, that's him on like, you know, For the Love of Money, the OJs. That's him. You know.
So the OJs are about to do their last tour as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very sad.
They've been at it a while. How many are original?
I don't know. I was wondering the same thing about Earth, Wind, and Fire the other day, and Earth, Wind, and Fire has a surprise.
It's down to like it's got a couple people. Like
some
Verdine
guys
White's
have come back. Yeah, some folks.
Oh really?
And also Lionel Richie is going to join them this year.
Ooh.
Isn't that fucking wild?
That's sweet.
Oh, no, that's the Commodores. I'm a jackass.
That's the Commodores. I was gonna say like, dude, I'd still go. Like, that sounds.
Dude, wouldn't
fun.
that be fucking crazy? If they're just like, let's just find some other classics and get them up in here.
I know Maurice White isn't joining because he's dead.
Ah, got him. Boom, roasted.
We will not be seeing Maurice White at the Earth. We fucking better not be seeing Maurice White.
Would you go see your favorite bands with holograms of original members in
man, I don't know.
Because
like I would kind of be maybe, but for like different reasons, like frame it this way, like maybe it depends on the band. If you told me it's like, oh, like if you were gonna take, I don't know how to feel like if you were gonna be like, oh, we're gonna project a Zeppelin concert, because that's like something that we just hasn't existed since 1980.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like.
But and if you had the visual and they had the isolated tracks and it's pumping like there's a live band up there, and the only people
they play
that
the live recordings and stuff because they have a bunch of really nice live stems of all that stuff.
Man, you know what the most impressive thing of that era that I've seen in terms of live shows is that most recent Creedence Royal Albert Hall show, where they did this documentary outlining, you know, the moment that they became the biggest band in the world. They're talking about like, this is the tail end of the Beatles, and you're looking for an American rock band to take over the world pretty much. And CCR is getting there. The Beatles break up and they go to the UK for the first time, and shit is just bonkers. And then you watch this Royal Albert Hall show, and it sounds amazing. I mean, you're looking at the PA, and they're standing in front of it.
Oh, yeah.
You know? It's like how this show could be at all tolerable in any way, shape, or form, I cannot imagine. But then it's just like they've remixed and mastered this thing. And they're literally standing in front of the goddamn speakers. The hottest mics you can find, you know, unshielded pickups.
Yeah,
a one kick drum mic and an overhead, and that's it. I don't know how they pull that kind of a thing off.
I don't know, man. And I don't know if I think there's something too, like, in those days, I mean, the things were loud. I don't think things were I don't know. I'd be curious to hear about, because, like, that was before PAs were what they were.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the PAs we have now are like earth movers. Like they're pretty phenomenal. PAs of that era were literally just for public announcement. Like that's what they were all like. They weren't. They weren't. It was before people were tuning them to optimize. Like, oh, this can go down to like 18 hertz.
Yeah.
This is gonna be awesome. People weren't thinking about that shit.
People were using PAs as guitar amplifiers because they broke up so good. I mean, like they had such horrible distortion.
They only existed to speak through, so everything just like would get crunchy and everything was tinny and thin. But also like amps, there were only so many. Well, the PAs couldn't handle it. That's why, like bands like The Who, that's why Jim Marshall invented the 100 watt. Not invented, but that's why he made, after making a bunch of 50 watt JCMs for Pete and John in The Who, he started making hundreds. And like,
because they just need to push that much harder.
In all tube 100 watt guitar head, scream is balls loud.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, cool.
Nice.
Like knobs.
Diamond.
Knobs, up. And, so those bands' stage volume was insane because I think when you'd go to a concert, most of what you heard were their fucking amps because the PAs couldn't hang. Or you have just some whatever microphone that you stick in front of one of the, and then you turn it up and the PA is like, ah, you know. So like those guys, like bands like The Who, they just like what you heard in the room was the gear they fucking turned up on the stage. And I bet you, out in the audience, it probably sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
On stage, it's probably deafening.
In the front row, it's probably deafening. But
It's
when
probably
it comes,
insane.
you know, like I was gonna say this about when you were talking about horns and like that particular pop you get. Like, there's something about moving air in that way that feels physically good. It's like when you get in a car and the subs are right and it shakes everything about the seat you're sitting in, but it doesn't lose the shape, the contour of that
the
look.
clarity.
Yeah. When you feel physically interacted with when you're listening, there's something so much more euphoric about the experience. Like, I think that's why live shows of that era just felt so much more heroic. You know, why there were guitar heroes and not just guitar players. Like, because these people would tear through your frontal cortex in a way that left you pretty much lobotomized. You know what I mean? Like, they scrambled you, dog.
Yeah, it was them and the stuff they stacked up on the stage, and they just turned it up. And like I said, it hit you in the chest. And also, that was the beginning of that. Like, they witnessed the beginning of that. That's just the norm. That's just like, you go big arena with band loud. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. Like, I've been to some shows where even in the back, it was like pretty loud. Like, I was outside. Granted, they have multiple speakers, tiers of speakers. But I was in the lawn to see Iron Maiden a couple years ago. And when it was packed, it was awesome to see. Like, it was probably the most packed Riverbend show I've ever been at.
That's awesome.
It was Iron Maiden. That was probably 2019 or so.
That's fucking sensational.
And I was on the lawn, and even back there, it was like fucking loud. It's like, dude, another band that gets mixed super loud live, like too loud, Dream Theater. I've seen Dream Theater twice.
I believe that.
They're fucking loud.
Welcome back, Mike Portnoy. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
Big news.
I'll probably, last time I do like I've been a fan of Dream Theater a long time. I don't think, and maybe he never did, but I feel like these days, like James LaBrie doesn't sound, he's very inconsistent, the singer. But man, like everything else, like the execution of everything else is fucking flawless and amazing.
Yeah.
But they're a band too. Like, I will say they're like, they have them too loud, but like that is some of the like the gnarliest guitar tone I've heard live at a concert though, is like the John Petrucci's front of house sound. Yeah. Is monstrous. It's just too fucking loud. Well, even in the band, it's just like, it's like a wall. You're getting hit. It's like a fucking wall. And it sounds amazing. And like all of it, it's not mushy. Like, it sounds, it sounds just like you put on your studio headphones and listen to like the super perfectly sculpted heavy distortion tone. It sounds like that. It sounds amazing. Yeah. But it's just like, they are mixed fucking loud. Man. That's just them. Like, that's just I've heard that from other people. It's Dream Theater shows are loud. Yeah.
There's something that as a kid that grew up with an acoustic guitar, mainly playing by myself, learning to thin out voicings, but keep tonally, wholesome, to actually have something that feels meaty and real. Like, it's really turned my mind upside down of where do you belong in this band, in my
Yeah.
own band even. It's like, what do the keys have to offer that you don't have to offer? Like, once you're past a 3-note chord voicing, you're kind of just, pissing where you're standing. Like, you're making a mess of your own
Yeah.
contribution here. Whereas, the fidelity of this keyboard is going to have so much more weight and presence to offer. So as someone that's come across from a mainly monophonic instrument, how do you how do you engage a guitar player to get them out of your range in that way? If someone is sitting in your space, do you adjust, or
It's kind of it depends on what you're playing. Like, it only really becomes an issue when it's primarily an issue if the tone or volume, like on the onstage sound, is like kind of skewed. If a guitar player is playing down low, but they have like I said, if their low end or their low string just doesn't, because sometimes it also depends on a room. Sometimes you're in a goofy room, or maybe an amp is on the floor. Like, I've yelled at a lot of guitar players about this. Well,
Good,
or
though.
anybody in general. Well, this is a quick aside.
Let me
It's-
have it for
it's
us.
Related. Yeah. Well, you don't follow this because you don't use amps. Like,
Yeah.
we plug. It's awesome
For
But
that
if,
reason.
but yeah, well, like that. Well, because you understand that you're like, oh, you're removing a lot of the problem factors from, like, like, oh, we play in all these different rooms and they all have different load-ins and different sound check times. Like, there's only so much. You took the steps to be like, oh, I can just like remove all of the factor, like all of the shit that's up in the air. You just remove from the equation. Like, every room you go into, you're like, it's not a problem.
Well,
You
it's not up to me either. Like, one thing I would
There's-
say
yeah.
about we're talking about the volume of shows and whatnot, and like, this is something that I've been focusing more and more in as I try to make my rig applicable to every room I go in with, just like the rack we walk in with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm playing at Ruby's, in any room where it's like, I need to maintain a certain level of stage volume. Like, what makes me comfortable is not what's going to make the audience comfortable. And,
Yeah.
I will give Jeff a little bit of credit on the fact that he came to an all original show of mine. He
Nice.
he was
That's
gifted
cool.
a chair from someone in the audience. He sat there and smoked a stogie, and he came up and he said, "Hey, if you play some songs that the people know, you're welcome at the restaurant." I was like, "That's fucking awesome."
That's cool. Where did he see you play?
He drove up to Piqua in his tour bus and saw us play like the Rock Piqua Festival.
Came to see you guys specifically?
Yeah.
What was the story like? Because that's like,
I-
it was like 90 minutes away?
It's about an hour 15, hour 20 away.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to play with Tim Sylvester with
Okay.
with his 4-piece on Wednesdays at Carl and Johnny's,
Oh,
just
okay.
like an internship, just learning how to do it.
That's
and-
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Tim has been a really good mentor in my life.
Yeah.
So when it came time that I was really interested in having those gigs as part of my regular, my pops really worked hard on just talking to the family and getting them to come up there. And they've always made space for my stuff in that regard,
Yeah.
for my material to be a part of my show and my presentation, because it's the only thing that I really care about moving forward. Like, I could play Dock of the Bay somewhere else, but it's not really what's going to make me happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. And there's also like that. Yeah. That is a means to an end.
Exactly.
That's all that is.
But
It's
in
fun, but
in
that's
that
all it
particular
is.
environment, I'm gonna build a box that allows me to rock out with my friends in my own little world at the volume and the intensity that I enjoy,
Yeah.
and then front of house can do exactly what they need to for the restaurant.
Yeah. You're not impacting that.
Exactly, because if I'm gonna get upset about my monitor level not being hot enough for me to enjoy the fact that one thing that I'll say with your playing coming there and stepping into this work that we do, everyone in that band loves a fresh take on what someone else is gonna play and how they're gonna interact, and we
Yeah.
already all have so much rapport together that's easy to say, oh, now here's the stuff that at least I like playing. I hope the guys like playing. And it all gets to come together in a way that we all can feel musically interested, and it can come back to what you said. It looks like we're having fun. It
Yeah.
looks like we're going there. And I'm not going to hinder front of house from pushing it right to the brink of what they are capable of and having that back wall fucking scream, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be part of that decision-making process. I
Yeah.
want to be having my own fun up here, and you can kind of isolate. You can EQ the fuck out of my guitar. I don't even know.
Yeah,
if you're in
it's
front of house,
it's
you know?
totally that is nice. And then the thing I was gonna say before the in-ears thing is like when there are amps and stuff, which are great because like I have a bass rig. Fortunately, I got used deals, but like if I were to buy that rig again on today's prices, it's like way too much money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's like
I've spent way too much money on some of this shit.
the Subaru is just a set of wheels to get the rig there. You know,
Dude, you want to talk about bad financial decisions? Jesus Christ, that
dude. Bass players seem a little more notorious these days than guitar players for spending a lot of money on their equipment.
bass shit's expensive.
Most guitar players play their middle of the line gear on their gigs, versus the bass players I know are like, "This is my prized possession."
There's
yeah.
a lot of us. I'll admit, man, I've gotten. There have been some things where sometimes I look around. I'm very grateful for this. Sometimes I've looked around at certain things and been like, man, I got some fancy shit. Like,
and you do something with it though.
I do.
There's a lot.
I have no remorse or regret
Yeah.
over having such like a bass that has my fucking name on the back of the headstock. Like,
Yes.
I'm cool with it. It's nice. Like, but I do.
But there's some
I
bass players who can't make something like, you know,
make
it's
my
like
living with that bass.
yeah,
you
or
know?
not only make a living, but you make some fucking sounds with that people love. And it's like if you're gonna have a nice microphone going into a shitty preamp, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you have nice hands going onto a nice instrument through a nice set of amps, and now it's worthwhile. But if you got shitty hands on a nice instrument, no one here's happy
Yeah.
to listen. You know?
Yeah, no, that is true. And yeah, those are just things that like, you know, there's a lot of this stuff I only got into because of it's my livelihood. And there's like certain types of situations, you know, there's certain types of gear and stuff that I've bought recently that years ago I would have been like, why would I ever give a shit about this? And I think some of it too is you get to a point where you can only get you get a certain amount of basses or guitars or something, and whether it's like, oh, I have the different flavors of bass I like, or the different brands, or like, oh, I finally found a few that I love so much. It's kind of how I feel about my amp. Like, I don't window shop for amps much because I do really like mine. Every now and then I look at stuff, but also they're so goddamn expensive. I mean, basses, like the instruments can get expensive, but like bass, but if you get like two nice cabinet, like smaller, if you whether 12s, 210s, something that's still portable but still rocks.
Mm-hmm.
One of these high-end professional level like heads, and like maybe a pair of cabinets, either like a pair of 12s or like a pair of 210, like, you know, 210 and a 12, whatever. But like a modular, high-end, nice-sounding setup is any more is gonna run you like $3,500. Like if you were just to like order one, like get online, I'm gonna order it right now straight from the person, like not shop around used or wait for it. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, like certain, and you don't have to. There's a lot of stuff that's less than that, but like a lot of it is, unfortunately. So I'm glad that's one of the reasons I don't window shop for amps, is like I have something that the replacement value new is like really expensive.
Yeah. I
And
think there's a lot of wisdom in what you said
Yeah.
though, where it's like it's got to be a modular setup. It's got to scale as the gig scales. It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing more annoying than the guy who's going to bring his 410 out to every
Yeah.
single gig,
And
because I'm going to ask you to go DI tonight. And if you don't have a DI that can handle still sounding like you and giving the essence of what you
Yeah.
like about it.
yeah, or
then-
if you're just not used to playing like that too, like there's the learning curve to just with ears. Fortunately, I do it a lot.
Yeah.
So when you show up to a gig, they're like, yeah, plug your ears in. I'm just like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and because I know what my shit sounds like, and like I said, I'm ready for it, like with tone shaping and stuff and preamps. I'm just like, oh, I know exactly what my direct sound is gonna feel like, so let's do it.
Yeah.
You know. But the thing with amps, because I don't need to get into the bass amp thing. There's some cool ones.
You
but-
should. You should.
but- well, the modular thing is cool because, and it's funny. My favorite cabinet is 410, like
yes, yeah.
because they're so fast. You have 4 10-inch speakers in there, and 10s are nice because they're quick,
Mhm.
like in their response. But then you have 4 of them, so you have all of like the low end punch, but there's no flubbiness to it. Like every note is just like in the ghost notes especially. So even just like you just pat on the strings and you feel the cabinet just like,
Yeah.
you're like,
And,
oh,
what kind of wood makes the difference in that kind of cabinet?
I don't think it matters that much.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. In the cabinets, not really. I think most people use. I think what common one is like people use like birch plywood
Mm-hmm.
a lot So like laminate for sure. Like people aren't using hardwood in them because they have to be rugged, but it's like nice plywood. It's not particle board, but it'll be like, again, like the having mine are made out of birch, and I don't know how many plies the board is, but it's like thin pressed layers of birch.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if anything has gotten significantly lighter, it is bass cabinets.
Yeah.
Because with PA,
I can throw
like,
mine.
it's
awesome.
Which would be the ultimate way to win a street fight between fusion bands is to have the bigger but lighter
You
cabinet.
gotta throw your gear at people.
So you can take out more band members. You know, what if you're fighting a horn band? Like, what are they gonna do? Like, you're gonna throw your fucking trumpet at
you
me?
want
I dare
something you can swing
Exactly. Yeah.
because you can get a few of them. Because they're coming at you with their slides.
You hit that up B like Link, and you just start spinning with your shit.
You get too close, they're spraying valve oil. It's all slick. Right?
It's a dirty play. Okay.
You're just like, oh man, I'm all slick. Like, oh no.
The guy's just emptying his spitter on
Greasing
you.
up. Yeah. Yeah, puddles of condensation everywhere from the spit valves. Like in their defense, I know, like in essence, it is kind of gross. What it mainly is, I mean, there is some saliva in there, but to the horn player's defense, it is primarily condensation that comes from blowing hot air through a tube. So, like, what's actually falling out of the valve is mostly just water. Is mostly condensation. There's definitely, but there's saliva. I'm not saying there isn't saliva in it, because and especially a lot of embouchures, you have to make this like ridiculous. I can't do it, but they're like buzzing their lips on the thing.
Yes,
that's fucking insane.
Dude, the amount of times I watch Branscombe put on chapstick really has upped my respect for the instrument.
It's insane.
But it's lowered my respect for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, lick him a little more, brother. Like, come on. If you need to outsource, find somebody. You know,
right? Get somebody to grease up those lips, man.
I really wonder what it would be like if you saw a horn player who loved loose jaw. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what could that do to a horn? Could they build a horn that's resistant?
Oh man, you mean just like tobacco?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Like, I'm sure that. Well, I don't know if he still does this or not. Like, you just can't dip while you're playing. Like, you know Danny Manning?
Yeah.
He might not anymore, but like, at least he used to.
Used to love dip?
Yeah, Danny Manning used to dip.
Okay. I will ask him about this next time I see him. Like, I don't know Danny well enough for me to be like, so when you spit through that thing, like, you ever put some chaw up in there? But, like, that's exactly
You
how
should
I'm
ask
phrasing
him.
it. Yeah,
But you
exactly.
should.
Yeah.
Because, like, what's a better way to frame it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. Yeah, like I said, you just have to, like, you get that shit out of there before you start blowing on the tube.
Yeah.
I'm
Can't get all of it.
I'm very grateful that I don't have a tube to blow on for my instrument.
Yeah.
You know, like on break, it's like, oh, I can have, like, you know, if for whatever reason it's just like, oh, I should have had some water, so I'm feeling dry, and it's like, oh, it's fine, I'll get over it. But I'm not like, oh my god, I'm not up here dying because I'm like exerting my entire being through a fucking metal tube.
Dude, I played
tube
one
instruments.
of my favorite dive bars the other day. It's called Shorty's Sugar Tip Pub in
where's
Northern
that?
Kentucky. It's in like it's off 42,
That's fun.
Florence.
Ooh.
It's the only smoking bar that I'll play at, and it's because one of my favorite bartenders used to work there. He's unfortunately passed since.
Oh man.
But I play there out of reverence for my boy Jeremy. And I don't do it often just because it's hard on the body and on my equipment. It's like,
Yeah, it's nasty.
everything's gonna smell like secondhand. But like, you know, like, I'm pretty good at this point about unpacking my shit in the parking lot and moving it in there, so none of my soft
Wheel
cases
your
sitting
cases,
there just
yeah.
suck it up. But I always forget about the foam on the inside of the microphone. And yesterday I was playing my gig and I was like, my mouth is kind of like burning. Like, what's going on? I gave it one of those and I was like, it smells like Reds. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah.
Like, so I'm probably gonna bring up that issue next time I play. They're like, hey, you're gonna have to replace my pop filters. You know?
Hey, that's not bad. Tell them too. Like, yeah, like if you guys buy a pack of them,
Yeah.
and I'll just, like, you know, go buy a bunch of them from your Sweetwater guy, and
Yeah,
just like, and
'cause
I'll
I'm
just
sure-
I'll swap them. I'll swap them out when it's time.
But I
That's
will
not unreasonable.
for a dive bar, like, you know, you go into some of these spots and you expect it to be like the same type of people that would go there. The only thing that all these people have in common is they're there to smoke. And outside of that, it's amazingly diverse. And I love that for them. It's
I could
like,
see that. It's because, like, you know, the smoking bar is now, like, not really existent. So
Yeah.
but there is what, and this is all power to him, I guess. And this kind of cracks me up. The fact there's a community of people who out there just like, man, if I could smoke a side of fucking wood, you know, and like, and then there's the one bar. So all these people are just like, you know, that because there's only a small handful of bars in the immediate area you can smoke in.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's probably more than that, but like I can name maybe 3.
Yeah.
That I know of that you can smoke inside, and it's just kind of like, you know, that because there's only like 5 bars in the area or so where you can smoke, you know that there's a bunch of people who are like, man, I really like smoking, and like I really miss when I could just smoke inside all the time. They find a place they can, like, that is going to be a selling point.
Yeah.
And there was a place, I don't know if they still do it. It's like 10 years ago, there's a bar I went into in Covington once on the main drag there. I really can't remember what it's called. Might start with a Z. There's a place there that starts with a Z. But it might have been next to that place. I don't know. I don't know the place.
Zazu?
I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
But they could, that might not have been the bar though. But whatever this bar is, I went in with these people, and you could smoke in there. And I had that realization because it wasn't just like, oh, you can smoke in here. A few people are smoking. It's like you walk in there and it's like every single person is just like,
yeah, exactly.
like chain smoking.
This dude looks like Wolverine. You know,
that'd be pretty good.
Exactly.
But
in a beater.
I kind of drew the conclusion as like, man, I think these people are smoking twice as much as they normally do just because they can smoke in here. I was like, dude, this is insane in here. And maybe it was being desensitized. Maybe it was like, oh, you can't smoke in bars anymore. So like when I went into one, I'm just like, this is appalling.
Yeah.
But it just, to me, it felt like, man, these people are at this bar so they can smoke. 100%. That is what's going on here. I can feel it. It's like, this bar sucks.
But
these people are here because they can. That's why they're not next door. They can smoke in here, so that's why they're here. Even though that bar is sweeter or whatever. Like,
totally.
That's kind of I get a kick out of that. I love that.
And what I find most interesting, like I want to sit down with Shorty, the owner, because one thing I really respect, and any venue that's gonna have music, you know, whether you're specifically a music club or you're just a dive bar that has music, if the owner hangs out there, if the owner hugs people when they come in or shakes hands, I have infinite more respect for what they're doing there, because it's not like they're, you know, one of the drunk patrons of this establishment. You know, they're paying their bill like everybody else, but they have invested themselves personally in this community, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But when I go in there, it's like no seat at the bar is reserved. A stranger's gonna walk up and sit next to you, and they're probably gonna ask to borrow your lighter, and then you're talking.
Yeah.
You know, and people are always buying shots for each other in there. It's like it's a much more I give, you give kind of transaction.
That's cool.
Versus these days when I go into most bars, it's like I could be sitting within 6 inches of you at Cloud 9, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk. You know, it's just part of regular social interaction. Like if I don't know you, we're not talking anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just so much more no barriers, you know, in that kind of a club that has a niche like that.
Yeah, no, those places still exist. Those places are important, and it is cool, you know, because also those people are, those environments, the people who kind of keep those environments alive tend to not be like judgmental. They tend to be very honest, and they tend to not be judgmental.
Yeah,
and that's where like that, you know, it's kind of interesting. It's pretty cool. I mean,
it's a special type of person. That's
despite
it's a hard venture to own a bar in any sense of it. But then to find a niche that people do respond to, and then to still be in there cultivating the overall attitude of it. It's like it's kind of the way that I should be more obligated. And sometimes I'm bad about this. About on your set break, you don't go spend time by yourself. Unfortunately, like there's certain folks in the band that do have that freedom. But if someone came to see me tonight, now's my chance to go say thank you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the show, I'm packing my shit up. You know.
Yeah.
It's not that type of a show yet where you go stand by the table and you shake hands until the line's done. Yeah. It's like, no, catch them while they're still investing their time and they're gonna stay till that next set.
No, it's smart.
It's not the most pleasant thing in the world. You
know,
know?
It's not. It's like it's nonstop. You don't get a break.
Yeah.
It's work.
And not only is it work, but you don't choose your customers very much in this field. Like, I've been told this when I went to Xavier. I got a marketing entrepreneurial studies degree.
Yeah.
And they said you should be able to fire your customers, And that was such a great aha to me. Because, like, there's been people that have come to shows that I've told them, like, you can always come back, but I'm not going to forgive you for this, or I don't like you for that.
Really?
And
it was like just some people crossing some lines, or
yeah, just some boundary crossing.
what kinds of stuff?
Some of it's like people assuming that they can ask things of you or take things of you.
Oh,
Like some of it, like,
and you kind of have to be like, dude, here's the reality of it.
yeah,
And if they take it well, cool, and if they don't, you're like, all right, I'm just telling you, and if you're gonna be a fuck about it, like,
yeah, exactly. Well, like I think
You know.
the most egregious, so I recently quit smoking weed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and probably not forever, but for a good amount of time here. Just I needed a personal break from it. But there's been folks that, like, on my set break, if I was gonna go out and burn one, like, I'd offer for a person that's listening to come hang out, chat with them for a few minutes. It was a great social interaction. If you ever come up to me and assume that you can walk out with me on my break because I'm burning one, I find that absolutely offensive. It's
yeah,
don't assume I'm sharing with you.
That's tactless.
Yeah.
It's like that's a self-awareness thing. It's like did I invite you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a self-awareness thing.
But for people to assume that's like it's part of my offering as an artist for you to spend that time with me, it's like not only no, but don't come back for that. Like it's like you pissed me off here.
Yeah. Yeah, go back inside.
Yeah, exactly.
I've only had one person who comes to mind in terms of a fan that I've wanted to fire, so to speak. Where you're just like,
it's a weird thing.
Yeah, and it was like this person. I mean, you're not gonna release a name. Have you met? I'm just gonna, even though it's recording, and I'm just like, I should say, I'm gonna say it.
First names are okay.
His name's John.
Okay.
His name, but also like don't put it up. But I'm gonna record it anyway, just because I'm sketchy.
Yeah.
Like I'm going on.
It certainly wouldn't be the clip that I'd share for you on Instagram, but like it will be in the episode.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you only this podcast thing? Like I said, do you only edit and put clips up, or the whole episode's available somewhere?
Whole episodes are all on YouTube.
Do you at least edit those a little bit, or
Nope.
are they completely? Oh, really?
Just as is.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want that out of there, I'll happily do it. It's just a decent amount more effort.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll stop with the names. If you just cut out, if you just cut out the bit where I mentioned the name, I shouldn't do it. Yeah, I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, you cut up clips, and I was like, well, wait, the whole point of a podcast is having a whole fucking episode.
Well, and that's one of those things too, where like there's been many moments where someone's like, would you edit that out? It's like I don't mind doing that at all.
Yeah. Use your discretion. I trust you, and it's not like he's gonna listen to it. But anyway, there's a fan I almost fired. It's because the reason is good, and it was like, and this is something I wouldn't shy away from. This is. I mean, this is a topic I could stand with the guy and be like, dude.
Yeah.
This guy was one. He really likes music, but every now and then he comes to see a lot of music. He comes to see Spherical Jet. He goes to a lot of jazz gigs. I see him around at a lot of different things, and he does like music. Older dude, but he like some of the lines he's crossed, like some of the, just at least in terms of just being a fan, like, of somebody who's there presently. It's like outside of like enjoying the music and always being willing to pay the cover or put a 20 in the tip jar or something. He doesn't know when to like stop just like having opinions about everything that's happening musically. He loves music, and every now he crosses into this thing of talking about this or that, and I'm just like, dude, I'm glad you really love music as a whole, and I'm happy you're here. But it's like, you don't, sometimes he'd use like his taste as something to be like this, or but his main thing that he does, and anybody who knows him, this is gonna give it away.
Yeah.
But his main thing is like perpetually like, oh, he's always telling people like, this isn't loud enough, and if it were up to him, everything would just be kind of like bombastically exploding all the time.
Yeah.
And he also like really likes chaos, and I think so do I, but havoc. But musically, he really likes avant-garde music and stuff, and really I figured out like all he really wants all the time is just like constant like musical explosions. And I was like, dude, that's not musical. We were talking about that before. It's just like, wow, like a bunch of people, like why do a bunch of people still like a song that's just like notes? Because there's moments where it's like there's still groove, like those notes eventually stop, and there's groove, there's different textures, and there's spaces, and there's grooves, and there's like singable parts, and there's like, there's the compositions are multi-lit. Like there's more to it than just like, oh, this song is notes or this song is chords.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that sucks. That's lame. You know, nobody wants that. I mean, and that's not just in instrumental music. Having a song that's one-dimensional like sucks.
Totally.
So
well, it's fickle. You know, it may scratch one itch, but when I ask it to do what I ask music to do, to soundtrack my life, it's like, fuck that one.
Yeah, or it doesn't last, doesn't stay around. So, you know, that's always his input. He's like, he just wants everything loud all the time. So whenever he's just like, I couldn't hear this or whatever, I'm kind of like, fuck off, man. Like, like nobody else told me tonight that this was too loud or too soft. Just you, and it's always just you. So I'm not fucking touching unless I can't hear, and I've just had to be like, okay, thanks, man. It's like, honestly, it's like, it sounds really nice where I'm standing, and it's like not a single person has said anything, but he's always doing that. And it got to a point, I was at a gig where I was around, and I really wished I had said something about it. This is one of those times where I really wish I had just had the conversation. And he was talking to Ben, the keyboard player. And he was like, man, I couldn't hear anything you were doing, which I know was not the fucking case. Mm-hmm. Been there all night. A bunch of other people came to see the band, people who like have good ears. Like a bunch of people saw the band. And they would have told me like, hey, maybe tell them like to bump this a little bit. Can't really hear it in the back, but you guys sang. I've had people do that. Just be like, man, you could probably nudge it a little bit, but it sounds great. It's like, okay, I take your word. Like, I believe you.
Yeah.
But when there's one guy who's like, I couldn't hear anything. It's like, that's not fucking real. And Ben was like, dude, that's out of my control. I'm playing a keyboard. Like, I'm using a monitor. Like, I'm not. But we've explained this to him over and over again. He comes up to us at these shows where I'm just like, with this PA systems. I couldn't hear this. Like, I can't change a single thing. So
that's the most frustrating.
Even if that is the case, which I doubt it, even if it were the case, fuck off. I can't help you. And I've explained that to you. Stop giving, like, God. And Ben was like, look, man, that's out of my control. Like, that's sound. And this poor young lady, this sound person was right there. And she'd done a great job. I like working with her. I think she did a really nice job. And he's like, are you the sound person? She's like, yeah. And he just like, it wasn't extended, but he just kind of opened it up on her a little bit. And I'm just like, motherfucker, like, don't come to my gig and then harass my sound person.
Yeah, because now you're a reflection on us.
It's embarrassing.
You've been talking to us like you know us well. And yeah, just because I know you well doesn't mean you reflect our feelings on this. But you bitching to the engineer.
I have a fan that just accosted you.
Yeah.
Like, that's embarrassing. Like, that's fucking embarrassing. It's like, dude, don't be like, you don't get like, if you're a fan, like, you don't get to be a liability, man.
Yeah.
And that was like, that's the only time where like I was really tempted and I didn't. And I think he's gotten the vibe a few times. I don't like brush him off or anything, but I think he's been perceptive enough to like either some of my body language or my vibe. Like, I'm nice to him when I see him. I think he's picked up on the fact a little bit though that like, it's more of like a quick hello, like, hey, I really appreciate you coming. And then I like just kind of get away from him. But I almost like pulled him aside really quick and been like, don't you you apologize to this person. Don't fucking embarrass me. And also it was tempted to be like, dude, if you're going to be like this, like, don't come see the band.
Yeah.
Like, that's off-putting, man. And the fact that you come like, oh, I love these guys. I know all these guys. And we talk to you. Hey, thanks for coming. And then you bitch out then you like give a bunch of fucking ignorant shit to the sound person who was just doing a good job. Like, we didn't have any complaints about it. We're the ones up there working. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here.
It's upsetting. Like, and it's interesting. A good buddy of mine was telling me the other day, he's like, yeah, like, there's no listener etiquette anymore. And I think that's partially just, it's the way the world has changed. I mean, the way you express your love now is a like button. It's not that you applaud and wait for the next song. You know, like, there's some impatience that's just implied with the way that we consume things we like at this point. So we had to relearn how to coach the folks that are our customers into the interaction that we want to have with them. Like, one person that I know is a master of this when I watch live footage is Prince. If Prince wants you to clap, he says it so clearly into the mic, and he tells you why you should clap, and then he moves on, and if you didn't, you're probably going to feel some wrath. I mean, like, musically, it's going to reflect the fact that you didn't understand what was asked for here. So trying to play the show in a way that makes people react the way you want them to react is a skill of the art form that we all need to not only consider but practice through. And it's so much more difficult when, say you walk into a new venue for the first time, and this could be a very experienced engineer, but if they don't know the music, they don't know when to bump. They don't know when to call for things to go a certain direction. Like, oftentimes, something isn't going to be how I personally would mix it, but it's not my job tonight to mix the show. And there is something so fucking infuriating about someone telling you to change the mix while you're trying to play, because now you're just distracted wondering, is the mix bad? Like, if I got headphones in, someone told me the other day, you shouldn't play with in-ears and you won't know what's going on out there.
I don't care what's going on.
Well, exactly. It's like, it's my job to do my best. What happens out there is totally on that person, and as much as you may have notes for it, I can't change those notes even if I agree with you.
Yeah, it's completely out of your
So
control.
instead of bogging down my capacity to do my job well with my concerns of what's going on out there, I'm going to isolate the factors that are in my control and execute here.
Yeah.
But it's so odd to think that fans are out here judging what's going on the show based on what they would like to hear. It's like, then you should probably become a live sound engineer, because that's the only way you're going to get what you want in this.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be ripped apart by fans and friends of the bands that don't like your mix, Then you got to go on both sides of it.
It's kind of funny. And it's like most people are just having a good time, And also, too, like, some people, there's always a past. You could tell it's like some people don't know how any of this stuff works. So, but, like, there's a vibe that, like, I've always been able to kind of figure out where my line is. Like, when somebody comes up and they want to say something, sometimes it's like, sometimes they're just trying to compliment you. But there's, like, a vibe. I've had people come across with, like, no vibe, but are just, like, super humble. And so whatever it is that they say, whether it's like, oh, I liked this or whatever, I'm, like, there to hear it. And it's like, cool, man, thanks. And it's, like, not weird.
Yeah.
And there's other people who have, like, an agenda with what they're saying. And what they're saying could be, it might be a compliment. It might be like, oh, I would have liked to have heard more, whatever. But it's like, it goes beyond the, like, I feel like most of the time when people are saying, oh, I feel like if they had done this with the guitar or whatever, that person actually doesn't feel that way. They're trying to grab at something just technical enough to sound like they are entitled to an opinion.
Yeah.
Like yours, like or an opinion on par with yours, as from the perspective of somebody of, like, who's doing it. And I don't think that's, like, a malicious thing, but I think that's something people do sometimes to try to, like, it's not malicious, but, like, it's like a self-awareness thing. And, like, when people do it, it can be really off-putting, especially, like, as an adult. You're like, dude, just, if you liked it, just tell me you liked it. You don't have to prove to me that, because what it comes across to me is like, dude, don't try to, like, quantify your compliment as being greater than the average man's or average person's because, like, you played a little more guitar than the guy sitting at the table with you. And, like, now you're using that. Now you're viewing, because then you're also, like, you're viewing what I did as, like, you're viewing me on this side of the fence in the audience, and you're over there like, oh, dude, I'm going to climb the fence because I belong over here with you. And it's like, dude, it's not about a fence or any of that shit.
It's a good way to put it,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are scaling the wall.
Have you felt that, though? Have you ever had anybody say something and you're just like, dude, why are we having this? Why is this exchange being had? I've had, not very often, but every now and then. And I had somebody just straight up say it once, and it was just like, dude, get the fuck away from me. It was, he said something, he straight up said, he's like, he literally tried to validate his compliment. He gave me a compliment. I was like, hey, man, thanks. Cool. And then he tried to validate his compliment. He tried, like, qualify it. To compare it to be like he literally tried to validate or qualify how his compliment was more meaningful than probably the compliments of most other people in the room because he had X amount of experience playing in a band or something to, like, that degree. But he, like, literally, like, didn't hide it. He literally explained that to me.
Yeah.
And just tried to my face, like, seriously, like said, put his compliment. He literally tried to explain why his compliment was of the higher order than all the other commoners in the room.
And that's the Electoral College. Let's get on the topic, bro.
Oh, is that where we're going? Oh, one quick thing. I do want to say, I keep getting off the top. The thing about guitar amps, what I yell at guitar players for, even the ones I like. You walk in, you're in a little place. They take their fucking guitar and they put it on the floor, and it's pointed at their fucking feet. They're standing this far from it. And, you're in my height, you're like 6 feet fucking tall, and you have a speaker pointed at the back of your leg, like this far from it. And they're just like, I can't hear anything.
Get a tilt back, dog.
But those are the people who have problematic low end because they don't know their volume or they don't know their tone balance.
Yeah.
And then also the amp is like, coupling with the floor. And most floors are either hollow or wood or hard surfaces. Like most venues aren't treated. So like the floors are problem areas. Just putting anything on any floor in the city causes like insane frequencies most of the time. And so there's an amp on the floor just like, right? Like coupling with the floor, turning into a subwoofer. And so when they play like some heavy voicing, a little distortion, it's like, chun, 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 chun. Like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah.
That's the only time where the low notes are problematic for me because I'm like, dude, you're swallowing me up, and I'm not just gonna fucking turn up.
Yeah, exactly. Because now you're fogging up the mix in general.
Yeah,
What's gonna happen to the drummer that's probably not mic'd in this situation?
Yeah, he's just gonna bash his drums. And I'm a firm believer. I would much rather have people be like, dude, turn up. I don't want to be asked to turn down. And like, it's not an ego thing. Like, if I'm too loud, for fuck's sake, tell me. Because I've had people do that too. Be like, man, it's been a little loud. It's like, why the fuck did you wait an hour to tell me it's too loud? I don't want that for you.
Yeah.
That's dumb. So just tell me it's too loud. But I never want to be the guy who's too loud anyway. I would rather have people be like, dude, you can come up a little bit. Which is always fine.
That kind of, when I think about the in-ears thing, if a band has some people on and some people not on ears, there's a proximity to the speaker that you're referencing the music from that has just a little too much separation for us to really click. And I'm amazed at how much difference that makes. Like,
yeah, that's real.
Yeah, like especially
it's right here.
Yeah, if the drummer is using a floor wedge and the rest of us are on ears, we're not gonna make it to this. We're gonna make it to this, and that might be good enough for most people. But once you know this fucking hug, it's like there's something unsatisfactory about that. And in those situations, God forbid you're the guy just far enough to be directly in front of that guitar speaker, taking it to the dome, wondering where the rest of the mix went. Like,
what happened?
It really does get sad there.
Yeah.
I like when guys, they'll set up their amp almost like a floor monitor, directly facing them, away from the microphone. Because another thing I always wonder about with any stage, like, picture the worst rooms that we play for wedding events. Like, God forbid the Hall of
Every
Mirrors.
single one of them.
So if you're going to have a bunch of people on wedges, they're going to take this to the dome, through the speaker, against the back wall, and out and around. Yep. Exactly. So you've just sucked so much of the clarity and physical interaction behind what the engineer's doing because you're just adding this 10-second delay of nonsense. And it's like, can't we all just accept that the technology has gotten us this far, that this is the way we got to go?
Yeah. And I think most people with the ears thing I think most people have issues with them because they don't find a set or a set of tips that seals properly.
Yes.
That's everything. And I'm so happy that more and more, like when I see threads and people talk about in-ears, I'm so happy to see more and more people being like, man, it's not about the money you spend, it's about the fit. Like, your first set of in-ears does not have to be $1,800 and custom molded to your fucking skull. Like, but
it's silly when they are.
But it would be sweet if they But like, if you have foam tips that actually like seal and isolate, one, that's how you're saving your hearing because they actually isolate. So like my in-ear volume is not loud at all. Just like my overall level is like very, very, that's the whole point. It's very, very comfortable.
Yeah.
That's because like when I put my ears in, like you being this far from me, if you talk to me in a normal voice, I can't hear you. And it's funny. There's a lot of people, like the church gig I work at, I have to remind some of those singers sometimes. I'll be all like, I completely plugged in, and they just walk up and they start talking. And I was like, I can't hear you.
What do you think this is for?
What? And now it's like up like, and I hate like once they're in, like I don't want to take them out because you got to smash up the foam tip.
Yeah, lift the ear,
get it seated, and then it's cool. And I kind of also like when I put them in, I'm just like, oh, there's no one in.
I'm alone now. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no one in here.
I do need to be better about setting up a talkback because even with everyone in ears, I'll still turn around and start yelling shit like it's gonna make a difference. I'm like, that's just bad habit.
And I found out like I don't know why I can't lip read, like for shit. I don't know what is. I can't. I try and also recently, even though I wear earplugs, if I'm not using in-ears on a gig, like I wear earplugs quite a bit.
Do you use the eargasms? You use something that's kind of like transparent?
I don't. I'm trying. I'm currently using a D'Addario set right now, and I think they're pretty decent. Devin I forget who made it. I think Soundbrenner, the people who make those like metronome watch things.
Yes.
They make a set of earplugs. They're a little pricey. I want to try them out. He really likes them. And I had a set of like erasers.
Yeah. Those were fantastic.
Those were pretty good, and I still have them. I've actually, I don't know. I might try them out. I might switch back to them. I haven't used them in like probably a year, so I'd be curious to like go back to them and compare and see what it's like. Cause I kept them. I just cleaned them and put them away, but I still have those. Those are always fine. The D'Addario ones are nice. They're fairly comfortable, but they almost, I don't know. They sometimes they take a little too much of certain frequencies. Like I feel like when I put them in and then like listen to music or listen to a band, I'm like, oh, this sounds really nice. Like, but they seem to like not do me favors with what my bass sounds like, which is a drag. So now I can do things like I'll do a sound check without them in, just to make sure I'm not like too loud or too anything. Like I'll get it dialed in and be pretty comfortable with it, and then I'll put them in. And kind of knowing that everything is cool is usually enough for me just to like not worry about it. And I think my brain fills the gaps in at that point. And then it's like, if I know, it's like, yeah, I checked this in a room and everything sounds great. And then I try to seat them in just a way where like they're blocking, but I'm not completely
suffocating
but
it.
I think I want to try something else. I don't think I'm completely sold on them. The fit is fine. They come with like 5 different tips, but I haven't just all out loved them.
Yeah.
But also I'm at a point too, like I should look into maybe a set of custom molded. I don't even think it's like that expensive really.
No, especially if they're just for a little bit of
earplug.
reduction.
Yeah, that's all I need.
I need a set of those for when I go to concerts, because even when I go see a show that I want to listen to, I don't want to take the heat of those speakers.
Shows are loud.
Yeah. But one thing I was going to say, I've always wanted this, and the only person that could do it is some kind of devil company like Ticketmaster that could seat this in the app.
Right.
But let me go to Riverbend or go to Icon and connect my Bluetooth headphones and say, this is the show you're at. We have an AM signal coming through for 3 different mixes that front of house has developed for you. This is for the lyrics listener. This is for the low-end kings out there. And this is for the person who wants the middle of the road. Or you can take them out, and it's still a decently loud show.
Yeah.
But say you don't want to listen to people talking around you, or say you like a really particular style mix. I want to be able to choose. I don't need to have...
That would be pretty cool, though. And
Yeah.
maybe and it would be kind of cool to, like, further immerse yourself in it. Because in, like, some spaces, it's hard. And also some of these environments, like, there's certain definitions that get lost when you're standing in a fucking lawn, like a football field away. From no matter how much effort, even though they put all this beautiful work into time aligning all the shit and it sounds good. I respect the woman who came to this show, and her water broke, so she got to tell her whole family about it. I don't know why you're so pregnant at a rock concert, but if you got to talk to the person next to you, go for it. Yeah, I don't think you should be here. Yeah.
Or say this is the first time you've done anything with your buddy in the last 5 years, and for some reason you want to talk to her. My
Yelling
favorite
about
fucking.
it.
Yeah, sure. I don't care why you showed up, because, like you said, like, we both have the same buy-in here. We both bought the ticket. You do what you want. I'll do what I want. I love when I go in places and it says, like, please shut up and listen to the music. Like, I think that's a good ethos to push in a room. But when you get to a certain level of venue, you can't control anything about it. So I would like to be able to choose, I'm in just the show or I'm at the show, you know? And to have a little bit of variance between the kind of mix I like. Maybe I'm being greedy now. But Ticketmaster, I mean, isn't the main thing you sell is oil at this point? Like, let's be real about the issue. Like, now we're talking politics.
There we go. Yeah, let's bring it in.
But it is disturbing when, like, you know, there's so many businesses in the world that you and I, as regular Joe Schmoes, can buy a small share of and be part of the decision-making body in some impractical form where they act like you really get to weigh in because you want to make more money off the backs of people that you've never met or seen. When that distracts from what the fucking business model is, you are Ticketmaster. but it turns out you're fees master, and we are the slaves to what you want to do here. Like,
Yeah,
I'm kind of pissed off that this has become a money-making venture rather than being the middleman between people going to see shows they love.
We never needed a middleman for people to see shows. That's what doesn't make any fucking. Do you know how many fucking? Think about how many third-party company service organizations that we get forced to pay for. We're just like, why do you even exist? When there was never like a real reason. Because I mean, it's the same way. Like, you can go to any venue with cash in your hand and buy a ticket from them.
Yeah.
Like,
and how much better does it go stand in line to get your ticket, and for the guy right behind you to hit the sold out mark, and he doesn't get to fucking come in?
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Exactly.
Right.
What wins are you looking for in this life?
Yeah.
I want to see him out in the cold. You know?
Yeah. I want to see some disappointment.
Oh, we're almost sold out. I'll take 5 for me and my 3 friends. You know?
Yeah, it's just like we like to move around. We like to explore the space.
Exactly.
But I mean, on one hand, I do understand like the pre-sale thing. Like, I guess that is like the beauty of it, is like I can buy the ticket to the thing that has thousands of people there, and the ticket is on me. I don't have to. There's no other line that forms.
There's no concern of this going smoothly. I get that.
I walk up to the primary entrance, they scan it, and I'm in. Knowing like, oh, I want to see that, so you just buy it, and knowing like, okay, my place is reserved 6 months from now or whatever. So like, I understand why we have it, and it's like, yeah, those things cost money. I don't know though.
But a $16 fee on a $20 ticket when you're also selling my IP address to a company that's going to try to sell me a T-shirt after the fact,
right.
There's no affiliation with the goddamn band.
You're compromising my identity.
I'm okay with that.
It is
silly.
Every ticket, because like in general, like ticket prices, most of the time, even for expensive ones, not like I'm always throwing down on expensive concert tickets, but I rarely anymore, after actually working and being a musician and putting effort into this, whenever I see a ticket price and such, it's like, oh, it's $90. I'm just like, don't fucking blame them one bit. Like, yeah it's $90. It's $90.
Yeah, what do you think the production of this show costs?
Because it's expensive.
Yeah,
dude, it's expensive to be me, and I'm like not, and I'm not Joe Bonamassa. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's expensive just living my life, and like, it's expensive just getting to my gigs.
Yeah,
and being there and being ready and like having what it takes and doing all the and eat and have like it's expensive as is.
And also, you want to perpetuate the fact that you already love this band. You love the catalog that you're going to see. What's the opportunity cost of them having another crack at writing another song that makes it in that category you love, or becomes your favorite song from this artist that you would come just to hear that one track? Like, you're paying for the opportunity for them to further this artistry. You know, not just the work rendered, but the work to be rendered eventually. And if we really love them, maybe that they don't have to come on the road as much in their later years, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're paying so that Keith Richards can transport his living room around with him because he likes to be comfortable.
He likes to be comfortable.
I mean, if you couldn't do all your favorite drugs anymore and just a couple of them, you'd like to have your couch there at least.
Right. And, you know, you got to pay for probably the full body blood transfusions he gets to stay alive.
Once a month, pretty cash. I mean,
yeah,
he's O negative. It's a little more expensive,
right? Or either he's buying it in blank, or he's just, I don't know. You could also get into like really dark conspiracy, which I do not want to do. You can get in dark conspiracy where I was like, you know, because some people are just like, man, I bet he just pays off a family and just like swaps his entire body's worth with like one of their kids or something.
Dude, I bet
there's like that train of thought too.
If you got on any Rolling Stones fan page and said, "Hey, Keith needs a transfusion. Who's up?" There's a guy raising his hand. Like, I'll do it. I would do this for Keith. Like, also, how old is he? 105. Like, if he doesn't touch Moses' 640, then I don't see why we're doing this. Like, what's a deity to you?
I'm in, right? And also like the blood thing too is just like, because I've heard that theory before. Like, I heard, you know, he pays a family millions of dollars. And
that Keith Richards personally does?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Somebody that's a working conspiracy. Then like, oh, he pays X, you know, millions and millions of dollars to a family, and they just like they literally like pull all of the blood from a child or something into him. That's why he's still okay and doing alive. But also, it's like, man, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You can spin someone's blood and they're going to be okay.
Yeah, you can get the right blood from a bunch of people or a bank where they keep it and have enough to go in your body. Because there's only like what? Do they take it out in liters or pints?
I don't know. I've never
Quarts?
drank one. It's never been something I got with my Guinness, you know.
I forget, but like when they take blood, like there's whatever the unit they take when you go donate blood, they take basically 10% of your blood. It's like, I can't remember if it's a liter.
I think that's if you do doubles. In a single, it's I don't think it's that much of.
But it's like they won't let you do more than a certain amount. But
Yes.
it's like they'll take.
You can do 2 units for 16 weeks of time, or 1 unit for I think 8 weeks of time.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you're gonna feel much better if you just did 1 unit.
You're anemic. Like I've never. but yeah, you walk away. You're just like because they literally just took like 10. I forget, but the math. But there's only like 10 or 12, whatever the unit is. I don't know if it's quarts. I don't know. But like there's only like 10 or 12 of whatever that unit is of blood in you.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, every hospital has enough blood to fill Keith Richards' body.
And it's not like he probably needs to run on a full tank of gas. I mean, like, he's been doing okay.
You know, like I just
half jack, half blood. He's fine.
So that's
like,
kind of my response to like, oh, I bet he pays millions of dollars. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, he has the money to get his way and get he can buy the blood. He can get his hands on the bags of blood. He doesn't have to. He doesn't need somebody to sacrifice their third-born son.
Yeah,
like to like some super fan to take $300 million fucking dollars and be like.
But if there was a fan base that would do it, it's probably the Stones.
Oh, I'm sure there's people for it.
Yeah,
but undoubtedly.
Do you know the blood banks? It used to be like, okay, if you went and had a surgery that require for you to get, an IU of blood, whatever that means, you would need to find someone to donate in place of that, so that the blood banks always stayed populated enough to service people in emergencies.
Yeah,
and you would kind of backfill that, but it's your own obligation to find folks that can help replenish that supply. Because it's a little bit of an altruistic idea, but there's also a very clear fact here that if you use one, that's one less for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have a supply of the whole gamut, and there's a shelf life on these things.
Yeah.
But instead now we have this shitty reward system that so I'll routinely give maybe 2-3 times a year,
Oh, really?
Maybe a little bit more than that if I'm feeling really good about it, but I used to be high too much at the time to be able to do that. So now I can do a little bit more. But I've had some bad experiences with giving blood.
Really?
But I'll continually get offers like, if you come give today, you'll get a Cyclones jersey. And it's like, I would rather get cold hard cash. And actually, the reason I'm here is not because I want your bullshit products or money. It's because I realize that there needs to be blood in the bank. Like, my wife's a nurse. I understand why there's an immense need for this. There's a lot of people that come through, and it makes me feel like a decent human being to give a little bit of what I know I'm going to replenish on my end.
That is smart. I can't remember the last time I donated or gave some blood.
But it's infuriating that you're out here buying wholesale Cyclones jerseys, acting like that's the sale I need to care about my fellow neighbors,
Yeah, but I wouldn't mind having like $20.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
I think if you could put that towards something productive, imagine if you told people we'll pay $10 of your student loans every time you came in. It's like something that honestly had tangible results that you don't need to go cash out of pocket. For all the UC students that you could do that with, and it's like Hawksworth is directly affiliated, that would be a beautiful thing.
Man, and again, sometimes you need it. Like last year when I had my surgery, I needed some blood. I lost, from what I understand, from what my anesthesiologist told me, I lost a whole bunch of it.
See, now that's just a Ponzi scheme. Okay, that's the guy that's buying. No,
It came out of a guy's coat.
But it is also disturbing that they're giving me a shitty Cyclones jersey, and then they're charging someone for that bag of blood.
Yeah, because it's part of a bigger service.
Exactly. So what is the transaction really looking like here? How much are you making off of me? And then also these nice folks that I meet at the Hawksworth Centers. I shouldn't just be degrading their name over and over again, but it's the only place I go. So because I show up, I'm talking shit.
Yeah, right, but you donate it, then it's like, now I have to go home and make more.
Yeah, exactly. Now I got to go home.
Right, I'm just like, oh, shit.
not bend my arm for a half hour, which is the most fun part of my day. One time in high school, I tried to give platelets, which is like a 2-hour process where you get on like the machine that strips the blood. That probably what Keith Richards is doing. I don't know. It's much easier to find someone with a scab and go for it, But I'm sitting there on this machine, and maybe I'm an hour and a half in, and I was like, hey, starting to feel kind of cold. They're like, you got like 30 minutes left. You're going to be fine.
Oh, yeah?
Dude,
cool, man.
15 minutes later, I'm like, I'm feeling really cold, and I'm starting to lose the sensation of my lips. They're like, you're almost
You're
there,
getting
kid.
close. Yeah, this is what we do. This
I
is how
forget
it goes.
what I was saying in the moment, but like I passed out.
Wow.
And I hear someone yell, breathe. And that's the first time I got smelling salts. And that shit, that ripped me a new one. It was crazy.
That shit's intense.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Salts or like ammonia or something.
Yeah, and it was a direct rip. Like, they were bringing me back.
Yeah,
so
because I know.
crack it like a glow stick and shove it up your schniz.
I've had, like, just really quick, just to see, because I've never bought or used any, but, like, sometimes, like, really intense, like, power lifters.
Oh, yeah.
Will take whiffs of shit like that. Like, I never did.
Powerlifting?
Well, I did. I had like a powerlifting based routine, and still kind of do, but I've varied it a lot more recently than I used to. But for years, like my primary workout routine was based on like full body stuff, and I got a lot of great results. I got a lot of good things came from it. Mm. But like some of the guys who get really into it and like are getting really heavy, doing some intense shit, will use like huffing, like smelling salts or ammonia. Or something, like a little ammonia stick, and just take a quick, and somebody used ones, and just to kind of get it, I didn't even say like don't shove it in your nose, but just even you hold it down here and just draw it past your face. It's like whoa.
Oh, it's something.
So, but like but they do it. I don't know if it's an adrenaline thing. I don't know why they do that, but like they do a quick huff of the smelling salts, and you're just like your body is just like
yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's like it's almost like you said, like an adrenaline rush. Like it's like between fight or flight, it's fight. Like it is go fuck somebody up.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it snaps your body into immediate like everything. Respond.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing to put your body through over and over again, especially when your blood's mainly in a machine next to you. It's like, get me the fuck out of this.
Yeah,
thing.
I need to be gone. Yeah. How am I gonna drive home?
Yeah. The other worst blood giving like experience I had, like I am really bad with needles. They freak me out. Yeah. So like in my tattooing experiences, I just look away. I can deal with that. But the length when you're giving blood like really makes my skin crawl, and everyone around you is just sitting there with one of these bad boys up in there.
Yeah, everyone's got one hanging, like it has a bag hanging on the row.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, the needle thing is funny. Like I'm not too bad, but I will admit, like whenever I have to get blood drawn, or like I was having a lot of blood drawn, I said right around that surgery, like leading up to it, they were doing a lot of lab work. So I was having blood I was having blood drawn from my arm like pretty regularly. Even though like like it hurts going in a little bit, and it doesn't like the principle doesn't wig me out. But I will say like I realize like I don't watch. I'm not wigged out. I'm not like I know like you're about to put it in my arm, and I'm totally cool. But I will say, like, I actually never watch them put it in. I always look away and let them do it. And most of the time, I don't even watch it. Sometimes I'll look and, like, watch the vial fill. And even that is, like, that's a little strange.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, there's something in the monkey brain that says, like, bad sign, Jim.
Not good, not good. Yeah, like, that goes in.
Yes, bingo.
We keep that inside. No, I think you're right. There's this like, innate primitive self-preservation that's just like that goes inside. Like,
yeah,
what is that's yours. Like, what is this?
Well, like even once it's in, like I have a hard time looking at the needle going into my arm and like not being like, oh my god, it's happening. But so like I'll avoid it at all costs, and I'll just be sitting there like watching Netflix on my phone or something like that, and 2 or 3 of these folks are like crowding around me and they're talking about something. And I'm like, I'm terrified to ask. Like, but I take a headphone out, I'm like, what's wrong? They're like, we blew it. and I look over, and I'm just bubbled, okay? And I am freaking the fuck out.
So wait, what do you mean there's bubbles in the bag?
No, like there's a bubble on my arm. And I forget exactly
like
what
the
part.
The skin
is like not like individual bubbles, like one bubble.
Yeah.
And it's just like lifted, like they take it out and like you're done for the day. Like that's all you can do, obviously.
Wow. What happened?
I think like they blew the vein, like they hit it, and at some point like it just starts kind of like pooling. And maybe I have that wrong. Like I'm an idiot. I don't understand this stuff at all. So like that fucked me for a long time, and I couldn't give blood again for a while after that. Since then, I've kind of gotten over it.
Gotten back in.
The last time I went, I'm having like a nice conversation with this fella that's about to stick me, and then someone from across the room, I forget this fella's name, but it goes like, "Jim, you sure you're good with this one?" And I'm like, "Why would you ruin my confidence in this man?"
You're
like,
sure? You're sure you're good with this one?
Exactly.
You got this, man?
Yeah, exactly. You feeling comfortable over there? But then my wife, on the other hand, I've come home and my wife gave herself an IV because she was sick.
Really?
I'm like, that is some mind over matter shit.
That's amazing.
But
Yeah,
I'm
just
the one
like,
that has to pick up bugs in our apartment.
right. Like
You know, it's like,
gave myself a mineral drip.
dude,
Like,
she gave herself a bag of fluid.
yeah,
And
just like-
I was fucked up about it. Like, she asked me to help, then she saw what it did to me emotionally to try to help, and she was like, I'd rather you just not.
That's kind of awesome. The closest I came was again during the recovery of like the big incision site. And I've told you about
You never have?
the surgery I had,
No.
the tumor, and all that.
Was it benign?
It was, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but it was like the size of my fist.
Oh, my
Like a
God.
big chunk of fucking.
It's a nice looking
flesh.
fist you got
Dude.
there. So, where?
It was like kind of near this kidney, and
Huge stone?
no, no.
Could you
No.
imagine?
Right, no, it was a giant chunk of fucking flesh that my body made. I guess weird bodies.
Is this something extra, man?
Bodies is weird.
It certainly is.
but
It's weird to think you have rogue cells and
Right.
just say, like, you
Yeah,
either die or we multiply.
They just made a mass and they were vascular, a bunch of blood vessels, so it was like feeding off my blood and growing. It's at a slow rate. Bodies is weird.
Yeah,
But
that's crazy.
The
Building a twin late.
yeah, anyway. It was cool. But I went through a bunch of testing and stuff to formulate a plan and get it. So like, long story short, I had the surgery like a year ago, September. Recovered for about 7 weeks. Like, was in ICU for a night. Recovered in the hospital for about 5 days, and then got back into it. Because it's they cut my whole abdomen in half and really went digging. They did, and they did a damn good job, man. The Tri-Health people, the nurses, because you said you're married to a nurse. Like, nurses are amazing. Where's she at?
She's at St. Elizabeth. She did
St. Elizabeth.
UCER for a while. She
Okay.
worked at Christ for a little bit, did some travel stuff in LA, and now she's in
Cool.
endoscopy.
I was at Bethesda North, which isn't very far from here,
Mm-hmm.
where we are now. Man, nurses.
Nurses
Jesus.
are the backbone
Holy
of the
shit.
system.
Holy shit. Yeah, unbelievable. So all the Tri-Health nurses are lifesavers. They were
Yeah.
amazing. But, yeah, I had to give myself one of my prescriptions after the fact was just, I think, to help encourage, or to fend off any potential for infection near the healing site. I had to give myself a shot every day for like a week or so, or
Yeah.
12 times or something. I forget how many times, which I'd never done before. And I don't think it's really that much worse than like what a diabetic goes through on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But the prescription, this box of these like one-use needles. The good news though is like the needles are like this long. They're not like these giant honking things. And fortunately, I get to the surgery, so it's like a vertical cut this way. So I got to. You just have to be within about 2 inches of the area. So I come down here and pick like you pick a fleshy.
Yeah.
I just pick like right here, and I'd alternate sides, and it wasn't that bad. But yeah, you just kind of take a fold of skin and just like, and just really quick, just like get that needle in there and press the stopper to push the shit in, and pull it out, and you're, and
The idea of just that makes me like sick. Like, I understand.
yeah,
like,
I had the pharmacist, because they were allowed to show me how. I think I had the pharmacist show me how to administer it. So the person who filled the prescription actually did the first one for me. And then I think my dad did one. And then I was like, okay, I have to suck this up, and I do it. And then every day until it was gone. And then I would put it in perspective. I think about the surgery I had and all that, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. like I like this could have, if I hadn't have found this by some freak chance, and that's another story, because I have to get running here in a minute. But I thought about like what they went through and how this thing, had it not been caught, would have continued to slowly grow and probably would have entangled itself in all of this.
yeah.
And then it, at that point, getting it out, it could reach a point where it couldn't come out.
Yeah.
If it were to entangle itself in all the arteries, and your heart's in here.
And then you have to get a different kind of custom contoured base for your lump.
Yeah, and then it's like, yeah. Or just like I have a stroke and
Yeah.
fucking or die or something. And
That's like, I think
it's a non-zero chance.
so many gigging musicians aren't prepared for a medical emergency. Is there any advice that you wrap this up with of
Have insurance. Unfortunate. I mean, insurance is kind of a scam in a way, but I will say though it was what Obama put into place, like the healthcare marketplace for self-employed people, gig workers, self-employed people who don't have, insurance or healthcare that's provided or made available to them through an employer. And then they can nudge prices based on your
income bracket and stuff. So it's really easy to do because it directly. Maybe I have to put the stuff in, but it's pretty easy. You just like give it a couple of the numbers from specific lines on your tax return, just to claim. Because every organization asks for like a different one. Some people want the pre-tax number. Some people want a post-tax number. It's so you always got to double check. Like, okay, is the AGI this one or this one? But yeah, it's fortunately like it's a little tedious getting into it at first because you have to fill out some fucking forms, and I know a lot of people don't like filling out forms.
I had a tough time with the marketplace thing. Like, I got a college degree, and I was looking at that. I was like, this seems kind of complicated at times. Like,
it's maybe like I'm about to renew. I mean, I've been in that system for several years now, so maybe because I'm just like in it and rolling with it, maybe it's. Once you're in it, I think it doesn't seem to be. I'm about to renew. It's that month. It's November. Yeah. So I probably have until December 15th. I'm assuming. But that's what I'll say is like, yeah, just make sure like, get in there, find a plan, read it's some fine print, but like understand what a deductible is or what an out of pocket is, and like, I didn't read every word of the document, but you have to glance in a little bit and make sure like, oh, if I get hit by a bus, I'm gonna have some fucking support.
Yeah.
And there are good plans. Again, that policy, my liberal agenda policy. All right, got him.
Good job, bud.
Yeah, my socialist fucking.
You could have said Subaru again.
Right, got my fucking my fucking handout socialist insurance, right? And it fucking paid for my $133,000 surgery.
It's a lot of bases.
It's a lot of shit. It's a lot of everything, right? And I still owed some money out of pocket, but it was manageable. I was able just to go into my savings account and pay for it. So I had a major procedure done, and I don't owe anybody any money.
Yeah.
And holy shit, like that's pretty cool. It cost me a little less than $4,000.
That's amazing. All things considered.
Yeah, really. Like, when you look at it and you're just like, yeah, I'll come up with $4,000 to just have that go away.
Yeah.
And
there's a state of the world where you would hope that medical procedures like that could be affordable to everybody, but in the current state of things, there's something really important about reminding people to be well-read, involved with their plans, and ready to enact the benefits that you have paid for and you are blessed to have. Like, you can have a lot of complaints about how things go in our country. You have the freedom to opt in for worst case scenario kind of help, and you're someone that is walking around living a good healthy life based on that.
And it's like and I have my own complaints about the system and my own views on how many other places do things like this so much better than we do. Like, objectively, it doesn't matter who you voted for. Like, objectively, it's just like there's a reason especially every other first world nation in the fucking world laughs at us. Because, like, yeah, you guys pay for your health care. What the fuck is that shit? Granted, Americans are an expensive bunch to insure because we're one of the most unhealthy populations in the world.
Listen, man, if you would have been eating more Cheetos, you wouldn't have had this mass.
Right, yeah. But it's, so, like, we're expensive to insure. There's 350 million of us. And, we have a food industry that doesn't exist in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
So, like, also European civilizations, as well as they haven't even been around as long as like ancient like Asian civilizations and African civilizations, right? The dawn of humanity is like Africa and China. I mean, that's not exactly. I'm sure somebody's going to hear this and be like, no, it's and I said I know I'm generalizing, but
alien transplants in the form of monkeys. I mean, let's be real.
There it is. Yeah.
We came here as fungus on a rock, I believe.
On a rock, but yeah, even though it's just like, the way we do a lot of this shit is really, honestly, ridiculous. The fact is like, I had to do some, I had to put some time into it and read my own shit. I grew accustomed to that because I'm a single I'm a single income household. Everything is my problem. That's just the reality of it. And everything would still be my problem no matter where I live. Like, everything in my life affecting me would be my problem no matter where on the planet you put me, right? Yeah. Whether my healthcare was free or not, it's still my problem to a degree, So, that kind of, so you just get used to that. Like, yeah, like anytime my information is needed for something, I'm the guy filling out the form. Like, there's no one else. There's no one else going to do it. I don't have anybody help me. So like, whether it's employment, financial, whatever, anything, it's like, it's me. I'm the one who fills out all the forms. So you just single in, you're your own secretary.
Yeah.
You know what it's like. You know exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
So
Well, thankfully, I'm getting on my wife's health care ASAP, Fergie.
There you go. But I think, yeah, you're growing accustomed to that. So when it's like insurance time, it's just like, well, I'm going to have to sit here and fill out the forms and like do some reading.
Yeah.
And if I don't know what a term is, I'm going to have to open up a new tab.
Shibuya.
And like, yeah, I'm going to
Make it private.
Yeah, I'm going to have to
No one should know what you don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't give out your intelligence ratings.
But yeah, I just feel like, okay, just double checking how does this work? And you could find pretty quick answers. So you can get a general feel pretty quick of like, okay, if I have a severe thing, and I have to go deal with this, or a doctor orders a thing like, hey, you have to go have this work done. You can at least look and be like, oh, okay, if it's in the network, and then you could check really quick. You could look, be like, are these things? In Cincinnati, we have it made. We have some really great healthcare.
I think the simpler solution is look up frog-based home remedies, get it on a plane.
Frog-based?
Yeah, plane ticket to Cabo, come back with some stuff that you're not going to claim in customs, and cook this thing up.
Yeah, dude. You could try. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna stop anyone.
Listen, as someone that
that's kind of how we got to the medicine part in the first place. It's like enough people did enough stuff of that nature to eventually figure out that, this like weird ass thing we figured out how to make. If you put it in this guy's bloodstream, it's gonna fix his shit.
If I was going to change my first name, it'd be to Doctor and just roll with it and just see what that does for my
I like that. But
well, as we conclude this, Matt, I think you're one of the baddest motherfucking players in
man.
town, but I think also
thank you.
You're far more considerate and concerned with the way that this plays out for your community than people could really see, and just
man.
the way that
Thank you.
the things that you do with your playing. I can tell that you want to see this get better for the listeners and the players alike. I can tell the way that you step on stage with folks and the way that you've treated me and treated others. So thank you so much for all that stuff.
You're welcome. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Matt motherfucking Wiles, y'all, thanks for watching.
This is awesome. I hope I get to do it. I don't know if you ever do repeats, but I could do this every week.
I do plenty of repeats. I'm just going to have to edit out most. If you see any blank spots, just know he said something that starts with C and ends with T. We're rolling.
but I like you only cut audio, so there's just strings where like it's silent, and I'm just here just like
It's just, exactly. And trust me, I'm really choicey about those moments.
right.
So it gets
and you're like, what's
risque.
going on? It's like he just kept saying the word cunt over and over again.
They can read lips, unlike some in-ears people. I mean,
Like me, yeah. Can't read lips.
The trick to that, find someone that will let you put your fingers over their mouth when they talk, and that gets a lot easier. You know what I mean? You just got to feel their mouth. Exactly. There's only one way to get it. Excuse me, sir. I didn't catch that. All right. Goodbye, everybody.